I'm working on presently just a little forklift so that I can take the pallets that go in the back of my cargo planes and move them around a little bit more easily. So it's just gonna be a tiny little forklift. Just trying to kind of figure out how I want to set it up. Keep it on the strong side. Let's see. So 3 wide, yeah, so that's like 2, so let's do 1. Not talking to myself. Alright, so I'm just working on presently the armature of the forklift. It's going to be on the small end, but I just want to get it working first. Hello, hello. Hello, Neotastic. Hello, Jason. How are you guys? Yes, building a little forklift here so I can try to do this and need to do it. I have yet to get to it. So. Spent a bunch of the morning just kind of cleaning up some builds that needed cleaning. First. Hopefully axles there maybe. And 5x. 5x need to go back more. So that's gonna be the lower limit. So let's get this set up right. So the height is correct. So this needs to be 1 off the ground, so right about there. Try to make this electric, it's not going far. I'm gonna keep it quick. Alright, let's start banging some weight in here. Picked the wrong battle canopies, that's one. Why is that too big? It's never too big. Hello, hello, SPC. How are you? Just banging some counterweight in here now. These aren't that heavy, and I don't load them with fuel until I get them in the actual cargo craft. But just trying to get a little bit of bang a little weight in here for now. Let's not do that yet. Let's put a floor pan in here a little bit. This doesn't have to be a looker. This just has to be functional. So. Functionality is the most important with this. Make sure it can work. Yes, he has vices here. Glad you guys are enjoying that. Been fun to make. Alright, let's see. A little seat there, probably. Get this working first, and then we can go from there. There's AD. Let's try steering this out, see what it does, and what needs to be flipped. It's the mass, 385, so it's pretty light still. Okay, let's see, steer to the right. So starboard. Come on, come on, come on. Can't find the callback button. There we go. Yeah, I've been thinking of intros on it. I want to watch some old Miami Vice, see what I'm working with here. All right, so moves. Let's get working on the lift portion of it. So I have dual linears with a lock, so I need to put in the locking lug, which is a gripper. Get a micro. Yeah, I was thinking of, I wanted to put like a Night Rider, you know, light moving back and forth in the front, but I need to play with it in Lewis, so it'd be Vice, but it would slide back and forth, so that's something to think about. Let's see, number out. I think is it break or release break? I can't recall. Let me update it and I'll check it. Forget if it's a release or if it's not. Break. So it's positive. It's an on. Okay. So let's see, what do we want here? So break's going to be output. Linear tracks. Okay, so seat we want. We want 4. test this out, see if this works. That's my dead one. Alright, let's test the lift on this. I'm just checking up with the chat here. So I'm building a forklift. I had those pallets that I put in the back of my cargo planes, and so sometimes I just need to move them around a little bit. I pretty much never... So forklift works. So I pretty much never move them around full. They always are empty. They're heavy full. They're over a ton full, and so I usually move them empty. And so they're not all that heavy. I think they're like 100 something empty. So just want to be able to move them around a little bit when they're empty. Let's see. This will be tilt. Okay, and then we want left, right, which is 3. Let me know if the music's too loud. I just have on some little synth wave. Get the seat up. I'll answer chat in a second. I'm just kind of bopping around, trying not to forget what I'm doing. Sticky. Okay. Yeah, the gripper track tends to do all right if, like, say you're lifting super heavy loads. If you turn these sideways, the gripper will grab them, and it's almost like a perm lock, and so that actually works really well. So let me just... Okay, that's... No, I didn't hook it up. If you don't hook it up, it doesn't work, does it, huh? Where is it? There it is. Okay, good. Alright, so that tilts, and then we have up. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in pallet. Okay. And then I need... Just do trigger, toggle, lock. So this is empty. It doesn't weigh very much empty, but it is damn heavy full. So let's go ahead and okay. So it needs some counterweight. It holds it, but it needs counterweight. The brake is sliding, so what we can do is this. We can get rid of the brake and do it this way. Sneaking suspicion it might not work, but we have tricks. Let's get rid of some try. I'll turn them sideways, and then they should grab hard. And we just need to reconfigure this a little bit. This will be, instead of attaching here, this will attach to... Let's see. Now we'll go from being a brake to a release. Okay. And we need to rotate the gripper. A sneaking suspicion was going to need that, but always try it without first, see how it does. Alright, let's try that now. See, I have to hook it up to the right node now, so it's no longer going to brake, it's going to go to release. Okay, spawn that. And I have to attach the whole sucker back together or else it's not gonna work. What got detached? Where you at there, guy? Oh, I deleted my pistons, my pivots. Ugh. Alright, that's fine. Let's go like this. Ah, symmetry wasn't on. Death of me is symmetry not being on. It's always on when you don't want it on and not when you do. Alright, so that should be set, and then just hook them up, and then hopefully that'll work. I'm just going to bang some mass in here while we're at it, because I know I'm going to need more counterweight. Oh, come on. Stop grabbing that. There we go. All right, let's give that a run. I probably forgot to hook something up again, but that is the way. Check chat really quick. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I think when I talk to Clara, she's good at Lua, see if she can come with something, because I need that custom lettering in there, which it's kind of, the custom lettering's pretty easy. It's just lines, so it should be able to bang the lines in with the custom lettering, and then I need it to like flow through, so you know that should cut it. Let's see, tip, 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 up. All right, so now this should grab. They haven't been doing it lately, so I do have to double check to see if this will behave itself, because those grippers sideways have not been grabbing properly. But let's see if it does it. So see, that should be grabbing on. There it is. Okay, so see how it locks? So if you do it sideways, that will snap and lock. So now it's locked. And the nice thing with that too is like you can have set positions. So that works now, and you can see it's pretty stable. That would happen in real life. You'd be tipping over in real life as well. So like that, I can operate this pretty well. So I tend to do this, I'll build a chassis first, and I'll see if the chassis is up and running, and then I'll bother building out the cab, because if it's not going to work, I don't want to keep, you know, I need to redesign it. So this works really well so far. Let's see. I doubt this sucker wants to work full. Let's check it. If this works full, that's going to be gorgeous, but that's asking a lot full, so I don't even ask that of it. Let's see. It doesn't have to be jet fuel, but it is going to be jet fuel. This one's jet fuel. That's why it's blue is jet fuel. Usually kerosene is blue. Let's see what we do. Let me see. Yeah, the symmetry monster is always disgusting. It's like, you know, you like, especially like, it's always when you're working on something complicated, and then you're like, oh my god, it was off the whole time. All right, so I expected this. I do not expect this small of a forklift to pick up a fully. That thing is massively heavy full. This is, because it's supposed to be a pallet, I don't put like visible dials and whatnots on it. Ugh, trying to get up there. Let's see if I can find a place to stand on the top here. I have a fluid port. It has, you don't fall off, ah, crap. All right, so that's something, it's over a ton. It's like, it's more than, yeah, it's about a ton's worth of jet fuel in there, so that's good. I have no intention of moving this full. This is to be moved empty anyway. So, you know, the point is to help me load some things. So I don't really care if it's going to be able to be moved full pallets. The point is just to move the empty pallet and to be able to help load it on. Sometimes I've been using cranes to good effect to get them in, not cranes, winches to get them in and out of the planes. So like here, I'll show you. Let's grab. I'll set it up in a series here. Let's get you. Don't forget to vote, guys. Let me double check the date on it. Where are we at here? Build voting is going on until June 12th, midnight June 12th. So you have until midnight, you know, the evening of the 11th. So make sure you vote for your favorite builds for Build Challenge Delta, so you can have the winners of that. I'd like to see as much participation for the community voting. That's always nice to hear what your peers think on the community. You know, it's especially, you know, there's a lot of builds there that deserve to win that were really great. So it's good to get them in there. Let's save this up really quick. Yeah, so that's a trick I recommend, is if you tip this locking track sideways and then you put the gripper sideways, it will snap. If it's close, it will snap into each one of these joints. And that, like, I pick up some immensely heavy stuff, like here. Let's find the container shifter. The container shifter uses this, and as you can see, it has 2 small linear tracks. It has that system, and it can pick up 2 containers at once, and old containers. This was built back when the old containers. If you look at how much this thing weighs 7,200. This is all weight in the back, and all of that's weight, and like this is solid. This is solid weight in here, and so this can easily handle those containers and lock into place. So if you put them sideways, you'll get really maximal lockage. Which is not a word, but. So like, for example, I'm going to shave the top off of that, but let's find... So here's the new stall plane, which is short takeoff and landing. And if we put the forklift in... So I can use winches to drag this in. Like, this is going to be too tall. Like, you know, this won't be able to go under the boom. I'd have to shorten this boom. But like, this would go in and help it, but you really don't need it. For what I tend to use is, if you look in here, I have a winch. And the winch will actually drag it right in and then hook on these tracks. So this is mostly to like be able to move them around. So like, you would get them out and they would slide down to about here, and then this would go snatch them. And I don't need this to be super tall. I could cut off the top of this and it'd be fine. Because you see how, so this is a trick they do with forklifts, not really a trick, but a method they do with forklifts here. Did I move that? I did. I copied it. I copied that. I copied that microcontroller instead of moving it. Here, I'll just show you this really quick. Let's cut that. So I did a little bit of work on the Vice stuff. One of the reasons I started working on the Vice boat again was I finished the Vice boat mainly, and the reason was I wanted to have a version of that boat that can go in the career build series, and so, you know, it doesn't need all the Vice's crap on it, all of his kitschy 80s stuff. And so the version, so I can just repaint it. So essentially, here's the Vice boat. I just repaint everything, and then it's good to go for career build series. Because I was missing it last episode. I was like, oh no, I built my speedboat to use, and now now it's thematically not going to work for me. Alright, so like that would go like that. I'll spawn up the train. And then if we open up the stall, so you see now this is short enough, it should be able to grab. Why am I steering with that front tire? Can I hook that up? Oh. I hooked up the drive to steering instead here. Yeah. That's steering. That's supposed to be on here. Just, they're right next to each other. I grabbed the wrong node. That would be why it was skittering off. So this is now the donkey. So this is donkey cargo. That's why it's DC. So that's my hand-drawn donkey. So my artistic skills are not great, but try to get a little cartoon in there. All right, so like this would then, I don't have brakes on this. It just, I have to go opposite drive, so it's not as precise as I would like. But so as you can see, this can take the empty container, and then I don't fill them until they're in the vehicle. So it just makes it a lot easier that you don't have to be moving huge masses. And then up a little bit. And so see, this can just help get it in there. It's not intended to drive it all the way in there, but like say it goes here. All right, and then I don't have a parking brake on this, unfortunately, but then you come in. Yeah, get up in there. And then, do I have a rope somewhere? I don't. Oh, I do. I was smart enough to put one there. Usually I forget, and I'm like, ugh. Let's see, why can't I grab this rope? Why can't I grab that? Probably do it from underneath. It doesn't like me looking through the staircase. It's glitching itself through there. And then you hook it up like so, and then this would detach. So there's a little bit more realistic than me dragging it. It makes plenty of sense to winch it in once you're in there, but so as you can see, this will come in, drag in, and then it snaps, and then we're in. And so then that would, on the side here, I have a lock, which I'm going to wait till it goes back, and then lock the pallet, and I can still open my door. And so this lets me load in, you know, if you watch the last episode, I came back from the Arctic. I took up some fuel, so one thing I really like with the oil update was the fact that, don't do that, don't do that. The one thing I really like with the oil update is now you can make fuel super cheap, but it also, it restricts it, or it makes it so that you have to actually kind of go get fuel, which is kind of cool. But as you can see, that holds 2,200 liters of diesel, of jet fuel in this case. You know, so that's pretty heavy. That's, you know, over 2,000 pounds of fuel. This thing holds, what do you hold? You hold 12,000 pounds. So we'll go for a quick flight. Did a little work on this. I don't know if you guys have seen this plane, but here's the service panel in there. As you can see, that's fuel and ground power. These types of planes are designed to be stalled, so they're short takeoff and landing. So they're designed to use very little runway, and that's what they're for. So for example, you see how it's already tilted? That's on purpose because you want to be able to have some angle of attack, so you produce more lift. You also want a really fat, tall wing because that gives you more lift as the it accentuates the bulge on top, which means the airflow goes over faster, giving you more lift, but it's a lot of drag, so that's why these types of planes don't go very fast. I added in the so there's constant speed propellers, and what you're doing is you're essentially, the way it works IRL is you go ahead and you set with the lever what RPM you want the engine to be at, and it has two centrifugal weights, and as the weights go out, it will open up a valve, and the valve allows oil in or out. And what that will do is, so if you're bringing your prop lever back, you want more pitch, and that loads up the engine and decreases the RPM of the engine. And so the thing with a constant speed is, like, say you lower your nose and gravity starts speeding you up. Well, what's going to happen is your propeller is going to start going faster because more air is flowing over it. So it's going to automatically start to increase the blade pitch to put more drag or more load on the engine and slow it down. So if you set it for, say, 500 RPM, it's going to automatically vacillate the prop pitch to maintain that set RPM. So I set that system in, so it's now PID controlled, where when I set the RPM, it always gives me the RPM I want. So if I descend and I put my nose down, as I start to gain speed, the propeller will automatically open up. How's the quality of the video going, guys? It just gave me a bitrate warning, so it reset everything on me, so I'm trying to. I'll fix it later, but it reset it on me, so I had to reconnect OBS to it. So some other neat things that I added today, just to make sure I can go back a little bit. So I added in beta and reverse. So what beta is so like in most turboprops, if I were to take the brakes off right now, you notice we'll start to roll forward. And that's because you have enough bite in the air. So what you do is as you bring the thrust back, you can go into beta. And so as you notice, we get a light. That's my beta light. And so now the prop blades, as you can see, they are flat. So if I tap the brakes and I let go, you notice we're not moving forward anymore. And so you use that a lot in, okay, thanks. And so you use that a lot in turboprops because the idle is so high that it would cause you to move too fast. And so you want beta. And then because this is stall, again, it's important to try to slow down as much as possible. So if I start bringing the props, bringing the thrust back, the throttles, as you can see, we're now in reverse, and we have reverse thrust. So not only does this help me get around more, but it also allows me to slow down more quickly. Again, the point of this craft is to take off and land as quickly in as short of runway as possible. So that system's in as well. Fix that up. I need to just re-index ITT, which is inlet turbine temp. Let's do a max performance takeoff here. We'll go out to the runway. This is empty. I can fill it up, but we have a lot of fuel in here. We have 12,000 pounds of fuel, so it's about almost 1.84 pounds per kilogram for jet fuel. And so you're talking about half. So if we have 12,000 pounds of fuel, we're talking about 6,000 liters in here. So it has a good amount of fuel. We could easily do Arctic and back. I did that in the last episode. Pretty much went up to the Arctic and came. I could probably close to get back if I went right to max efficiency prop setting. So your props are really what's running your efficiency because that's what's metering your RPM. You know, it changes depending on what kind of airplane you have. Let's start clicking some lights here. So generators need to come on. Let's get rid of infinite electric. Vehicle day. Okay, that's on. Good. So I'll show you what max performance takeoff is. So these are all terms you have in aviation. Like max performance is you're trying to get the most speed. Thanks, Jason. You're trying to get the most speed. You're trying to get off the ground as quickly as possible. And so there are some settings. You'll see if you look at the specifications of aircraft, it will tell you takeoff distance to clear a 50-foot obstacle. And what that is, you know, most airports have trees around them, and so the 50-foot obstacle represents a tree. So it tells you how much distance are you going to take off and then be able to clear a 50-foot obstacle. So that's important. And so let's go ahead and I will kind of do this as close to scientific as possible, but you know, of course in game this is a little bit easier to do some of the stuff. But so I've set flaps to 2. That gives me a little bit more lift. It's going to help me get off the ground. So when you're doing a max performance, one thing you'll do is you'll hold the brakes. So I'll actually set the parking brake, and I'll also hold the main brakes. And you do this to spool up your engine. So we're going to go full throttle until it starts moving itself, and then we're going to take the brake off. I'm going to let go of the brake. We're going to go full throttle, and I'm going to lift off as soon as it'll let me. So I put in back pressure, and I take off. So as you can see, it takes off really quickly. And it climbs out nice and slow, as you can see. So this is like a max performance to get off the ground as quickly as possible in as short of a distance as possible. So go ahead and I'll set up autopilot here just so I don't have to pay attention to it as much. Let's do, I don't know, 2,000 feet. Do 090 heading. All right, so that's in, and then I don't need to worry about gear in this. This has fixed gear. A lot of these have fixed gear, and part of the reason is cut down weight, but it's also you can have more robust landing gear. You know, you have to add a lot of components in. You have to put low inflation tires on there. It's a bunch of things if you are trying to make these aircraft that are used for soft field, which means landing on grass or unfinished surfaces like dirt or sand. And so you kind of often you'll see those types of small planes with fixed gear. So right now I still have full, my prop lever would be full forward IRL. And so now as I bring my props back, you'll notice the RPM comes off. The power stays the same. The power is just my theoretical max power for my engine. And in a turboprop that comes in as, I think it's TQ for torque, and then you have NP for your propeller. And so as I bring the propeller back, you'll notice I'm speeding up. I'm getting more of a bite of the air. The RPM is going down. When you take off in an airplane, you want max RPM. So you essentially want low pitch, so it doesn't have a lot of load, and you want max RPM. You don't necessarily want max speed. So my max speed, as you can see, is in between my prop being at takeoff and max efficiency. So I do about 190. Now if I start bringing the prop all the way back, you'll notice we start to slow down. Well, the blades are getting so flat that what they're doing is the engine is having to slow down because we're asking so much of it. Well, the benefit of this is as the RPM goes down, so does fuel flow. And so we lose some speed. So we were at 190, so we lost with that 37 knots. But our fuel flow is like a third of what it was. So we only lost a small percentage of our speed, but we lost a much larger percentage of our fuel burn. So we're burning so much less fuel to be able to go a little bit less fast. So that's why, like, you'll see a lot of people, they want to run around with their props at full because they think that's always going to give them the best speed. No, it's a combination between RPM, RPS or whatever, and the like, of course, if you could go full pitch and move them at an incredible speed, of course that would be your fastest, but likely is, unless you have monster overpowered engines, you're not going to be able to do that, and you don't want it either, because by doing this, by loading up my engines, I can get my RPM down very low. You know, I've tested a couple gear ratios where they're even lower, but I don't want that because so I've kind of decided on a trade-off. This is still a pretty good speed. I had one where it was down to 109 knots cruise speed, and this was down to like 150 RPM. So it burns almost no fuel, but you know, the speed is half of my max speed, and it's, you know, 50% less than this, you know, so it's, or more than that, you know, 60-something%. So it's worth, you know, so that's just kind of the balancing of it. So one of the things this plane is kind of designed for, and what I want it for, is, let's see if we can find a spot. Oh, we'll head back here. So we'll just head back. And so like this, so one of the things I want to do when I bring this to the career build series more is, part of the goal with this is these types of planes would be used in areas that have a lot of unfinished runways. And so that allows you to do things like land on roads and land on dirt strips and stuff like that. So that's what this type of airplane is. And let me see if I can find you a pic. I have to kind of do some screwy to not get it to show all my information here. Let's find it. So like this was heavily inspired by the Skytruck. And so that's kind of its goal, is to be very rugged. You see these a lot in places with a lot of unfinished runways. You know, like they're pretty well used in like Africa and you know, South America, and a lot of very rural places where you might not have a lot of finished runways. So very rural areas. Let's find. If I can get this to display capture. Okay, so this is the Skytruck. So this is kind of what it was inspired by. So as you can see, it has twin turbo props. There it is. Twin turbo props. It has the fixed gear. So those are all benefits of, you know, weight reduction. You don't need things like J-locks on the gear. You don't need really super duper exotic materials to get them to turn. You don't need hinges. You don't need hydraulics. You don't need all these complicated systems that add cost and add a lot of weight and add a failure point. This thing probably costs a hell of a lot less to insure than something with a retractable gear. You know, like if I was, even with my experience, if I went to buy a private airplane, my insurance would be triple if I had retractable landing gear. And it's because people forget to put their landing gear down and they crash with the landing gear up and it totals the airplane. So this thing costs, you know, a lot less to insure because the gear is always down. You know, so this is kind of what it was inspired by. You can kind of see some things. I didn't want as pointy of a modern nose. I wanted a rounded nose. This is a PT6. It even says PT6A on it. So PT6s are kind of cool. We had these in my turbines course. And the neat thing with PT6s is the turbine is backwards. So you see where the exhaust is in the front? Well, what's happening is this is the propeller. Then you have the reduction gearbox, because the turbine's job, a turbine is not a diesel motor. A turbine's job is to spin incredibly fast. It has high RPM, low torque. And so because it has low torque, you need to put it through gearboxes to trade RPM for torque, because you don't get anything for free. So you're trading the RPM for the torque. So it has a big reduction gearbox in here. And then you have the turbine, but it's actually facing backwards. So the inlet is back here. And so the air comes in this duct. It comes through here, and then it gets sucked into the turbine, goes through the N1 section, N2 compressor section, the burner cans, the turbine section, and then it comes out this exhaust. So the turbine section is right here. So here are your turbine blades, and then it exhausts out and blows out like this. And you can actually get like 10% to 15% of the thrust can come out of the exhaust. So some of them, you'll notice the exhaust nozzles point straight back, and they're huge. And that's usually when you get a good bit of thrust actually from the exhaust from your turbine. And so PT6s are actually backwards. They're really neat. And if you see the turbine blades right here, like on mine, that means it's facing forwards. And you'll often see the exhaust in the back. So I thought you guys might find that interesting. So looking back at the plane, as you can see, we're doing an orbit. So this will automatically go in a holding pattern over the point. So I'm going to bang off the autopilot, and we're going to kind of put this to its paces. So first thing we do for landing is we bring our, well, it depends. If we're ready to land, we bring our prop full forward. As you can see, I'm asking more RPM. So I'm telling a PID, hey man, I want more RPM. And so it automatically says, okay, for you to get that RPM you want, I need to have a very thin blade. And so you see, I still have a bite because I tell it the smallest you can go is 0.2. So that gives me a nice thin blade. You see it brings my RPM. Now we're starting to go down on RPM because I'm actually bringing the thrust back. So I'm bringing my power back. And this plane can go very slow. And one of the things that's important with a stall aircraft, short takeoff and landing, is your approach speed needs to be slow. For example, when I was the airliner I last flew, it would approach at 125 knots. So you imagine you have 50,000 pounds coming in at 120 knots. We're getting slow here. I'm going to give it a little power. You're coming in at 120 knots. Well, that takes you a lot to slow down. If you're coming in at 76 knots, as you can see here, and we're going to plop up. There we go. Didn't like that. Okay, didn't like that. I hit the gear too hard. I was just going to say, you want to plop it hard in real life. This has literally no suspension. That's why it broke. But in real life, you want to hit hard because you want to, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to float. And so you want to bang the gear in, you want to get on the ground. One thing that happens is the sensors on the wheels will sense you're on the ground, and it will unlock the reversers, and it will also unlock the spoilers. And what happens is, I don't have spoilers on this yet. If I can make spoilers that don't look terrible, I will. But spoilers come up, and what they do is they spoil lift. So I've actually done it in, let's grab, this is all set, I think. Let's grab the cap air jet. So here's the cap air jet. Cap air jet has spoilers on it. And so this is actually set up like the Embraer 145, which I used to fly. And so if you look here, we have these panels here. And these are spoilers. And so what they do is they come up and they spoil lift. So kind of like a spoiler in a car. You know, you don't want the car to start lifting up at high speed, so it spoils lift. And you have the same thing on here. These panels will go up, and so you have a bunch of these things called squat switches. And so a squat switch, all it is it's a little switch that you press, and it connects, it completes the electrical circuit. And so the squat switch, it is activated by weight on wheels is what they call it. So what weight on wheels means is if the landing gear is compressed, right, when you put weight on the wheels, it compresses the strut. And compressing the strut will cause it to, just get this running. So compressing the strut will press that button. Well, then once you have weight on wheels, it will allow you to, that will then allow you to do things like your reversers, because you really don't want your reversers coming on in the air. That's bad, bad, bad news. Many a plane has crashed because of a thrust reverser coming, coming open during flight. So you really don't want that. And so until you have weight on wheels, until your wheels are on the ground, you can't unlock your thrust reversers. You also, your spoilers will come up if you manually pick them up in flight. But, am I spinning? Where's my, I forget where anything is in here. Here we go. N1, okay, I'm missing some stuff here. APU bleed air. I forgot this one has bleed air. So I have to turn on my bleed air on this one, or I can't start the engines like real life. So the way it works IRL, sorry, I'm kind of rant here, but the way it works IRL is you turn on your APU. Your APU is like a turbo. It's one-stage axial centrifugal turbine, and it takes air. So it's like having a compressor and blowing it in a fan. You can spin it with the air, so you spin your engine up. So I have to actually get bleed air off my APU, or I'm never going to be able to start. So what you do is you watch your N2 as it's coming up. And we should be getting light off, and then you're good with that. So you check your bleed again. So one thing that's neat in jets is, so we can take the bleed off the APU, right? I'm going to turn on my generator, or we'll turn on hydraulics 1. So you can take the bleed off the APU. I can shut the APU down, right? Now I can do this. I can cross bleed from my left engine to my right engine to start. So we'll do fuel valve. And now, is it going to run? What am I doing here? Is this one? Maybe I don't have it up enough. I haven't used this plane in a little while, so I'm not 100% sure how I set this up. We'll turn the APU back on, and we'll do APU bleed, and I won't worry about that. We'll start up. I'm just going to show you the, there we go. So N2's coming up. N2 is the blade you can see in the front, that big spinning blade, that is your N1 blade. So that's producing a lot of your thrust that bypasses the engine. It goes around it. Then your N2 section is your compressor section. So you're watching your compressor section to make sure you're achieving enough compression, essentially. Hi guys, I just came in. To make sure you have enough compression to be able to get that engine started. So let's go hydraulics B, APU bleed, and I can shut APU off. Generator 2 comes on. Nav lights and strobe can be done on the runway. Anti-ice is fine. I haven't used this in a while, so there's all my fire suppression. I'm just checking everything. Cabin temp, cross feeds. I didn't check fuel, did I? Check fuel. Fuel's good. You can see we have 14,000 pounds in this per side. Parking brake comes released. This is going to go flaps to 1, and then spoilers. You see I have spoilers? So I can put my spoilers up. So as you can see, my spoilers are coming up. So one of the reasons you want to slam the short field plane in the ground, like if we had to land at a really short runway in the airliner, we would plop it down pretty hard. And the reason was we wanted to get the weight on the wheels, get the thrust reversers unlocked. We wanted to get the spoilers unlocked and activated. So I have spoilers up. The spoilers in this are set up like the Embraer 145. So if I taxi too fast, so let's say I start taxiing too fast, they would come up in real life too. So what it does is a little bit more automated of a system. If you have, say, a Boeing tends to have on your spoiler lever, you can pull it forward and aft to get more spoiler in the air in case you need to slow down. And then when you go to land, you pull the lever up and it arms it. So when you hit your wheels, when your wheels touch the ground, it will automatically pop your spoilers up. And what that does is it makes it so the wing is producing a lot less lift. That puts the weight on the ground, which is good because now you can use the wheel brakes. And so you want those spoilers to help you. So I haven't put that on that plane yet. I'm trying to get fast enough where this will get the spoilers up. There we go. So see my spoilers coming up? So if I go fast enough, it will automatically put the spoilers up. And so that's how the Embraer worked. And so when I land this airplane, if I'm on the ground, and if I am pretty much if it's on the ground and I'm over a certain speed, it will automatically pop the spoilers up and they'll automatically go down. So this is a little bit more automated than Boeing. You'd have to arm the Boeings, and then as soon as they're going to get off the runway, they just like slam their fist on top of the handle for the spoiler, and it will automatically put the spoilers back down. So a lot of modern planes, or more modern planes, will do automatic spoilers. So sometimes if you're taxiing really fast on the ground, you'll see the spoilers come up, and that's because they're taxiing over a certain speed. I think we're good to go here. We'll just do a quick flight in this. I haven't flown this in a little while, so strobes, navs, logo, landing, and taxi light. All lights come on for takeoff, and we're good to go. So I'll do regular callouts in this one. And so first thing you do is you bring both thrust up. You want to make sure they're matched, and that's to make sure one engine didn't just die as you're trying to feed it fuel. Airspeed's alive. You call that out. 80 knots. 80 knots yet. 80 knots. V1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear comes up. Now, if you've ever flown, I know some people are doing like the private pilot, you know, you don't put your gear all the way up right away. And that's because in a small plane that doesn't go very fast, you can land back on the runway. In a jet like this, there is no way you're landing back on the runway. Plus, you have two engines. There's no point in landing back on the runway. It's safer to go somewhere else. And so as soon as you get a positive rate of climb, gear comes up. As soon as we're over, in this case, about 120 knots, flaps can come up. And then once we're up, we can get rid of landing and taxi lights. And then you would call for the checklist. You don't, it's a checklist, it's checking you. It's not an instruction list. You know, you're not following that. You do the items and then you call for the checklist. So one thing that you will often have as well is you'll have what's known as spoilerons. And spoilerons, so it's a combination of spoiler and aileron. So your ailerons are your roll control, and your spoilers will come up. So you'll see, especially in some of the larger aircraft, they'll have spoilerons where the aileron on, say, this side will go down, and the spoiler on this, or the aileron on this side will go down on the left, and the spoiler on this side will come up. And so the spoiler is actually making that wing drop, not the aileron. So there's a bunch of reasons for that. You'll also notice if you have something like, say, 74, 777, some of the A340, something with really long wingspans, it will actually make the ailerons on the tips of the wings, they'll stop working at high speed. And the reason is you'll actually twist the wing with the aileron. The aileron would rather twist the wing than to roll you. And so, of course, that's not safe. And so they actually have a second set of ailerons that are much closer. So it's like a square board that's right about inside of the mid-wing. And so they'll use the spoiler on the outside because that's not actually twisting the wing, that's just spoiling lift. And then the inboard aileron will go. The outboard aileron stop working after a certain speed. So a bunch of neat aeronautical science stuff there. Let's go ahead and get ready. So in a jet you get some space. So that's about when I turn in a jet. So I go gear down, first notch of flaps, and we'll turn in. And so in Class B airspace, which most big airports are, you want to be below, you want to be below 250 knots, below 10. You know, we could cook. Sometimes they want you below 200, but you know, they kind of let us do whatever we want to do. You know, they want to expedite. They don't want people to screw around too much. So let's keep turning here. So in this type of like jet, you don't use the rudder really in turns. Like, you notice that's coordinated. I have the system auto-coordinated. You have what's called a yaw damper in jets, and it dampens the yaw, so you don't step on the rudder like you do in say a single-engine plane. You don't really need it. You don't have the torquing effects, and you have the yaw damper on, so you keep your feet flat on the floor. You just do aileron turns. All right, and then so we're coming in. We want to get established on the approach, so we're going to go below 2. Let's bang in another notch of flaps. I'm going to retrim. This plane is designed that I have to retrim. If I don't retrim this plane, you will crash, because I have both flaps, but I have anti-flaps under there. So it's, in real life, you get a lot of drag from flaps. That's part of the reason you're using flaps is for the drag. And so I have anti-flaps, which actually give me the opposite, and that helps simulate drag. All right, so we have full flaps in there, and I want to get slowed down to approach speed. I'm a little bit high, so I want to get slowed down to about 120 knots. So if you look at this gauge, a lot of people don't set their gauges up if they're using the system. You want to set it up so that the green arc is that's the slowest you want to go, is where that green arc stops. And so you see we're down to 120. That's about our slowest. So I'm a little bit high still. So I'm going to dive in a little bit. And there we go. That's looking better. That's looking perfect right there. Start to gently come off the power. A little bit of a flare. You fly a jet right to the ground. You don't flare like you do a Cessna. And we're in. I'm going to go full reverse, which, as you can see, will should bring my thrust reversers up. I can hear them, but see the spoilers auto came up. What's up with my thrust reversers? Oh, I didn't unlock them. Okay. In this plane, I have to unlock thrust reversers. I'll probably change that so you don't have to do that, but they will open. I think they're broken right now. I think that's something I had to fix. I haven't used this in a while. And then as you leave the runway, you want to bring your flaps up. You want to... we would have had these lights on. You kill those lights. You don't want to blind everybody. And then you want to run off strobes. Those are all courtesy things. You don't... Up, we are going to reverse now. I had the thrust reversers open. So you see the spoilers auto came up. I actually haven't set into. I think you have to be in. You have to have the thrust down. And so that's another condition, is your thrust position. And the reason is, if you, like, say we touched down on the runway and we saw a truck at the end, midway down the runway, crossing the runway, we could power up and take back off and do a go around. So I have the reversers need to be fixed. As you can see, they're misbehaving. So this needs some work. I haven't played with this in a while. I think I was working on the thrust reversers last time I touched it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. A little bit of interesting stuff there. For those who saw the last episode of Vice, I worked on the... I tweaked the steering on the Vice car a little bit, so I don't think Vice will mind if I drive his car around a little bit. So this car works really well now. Started doing a tutorial on transmissions. It's a very dense topic. You know, I know a lot of people like tutorials that are very short. You know, that's not how I do them, and I think it actually saves you time that way. And so kind of my whole thought process with the tutorial is, if, you know, I see this all the time. It's one of the reasons I started doing tutorials was a lot of people would put out a 5-minute tutorial. It's a pretty good tutorial, but the problem is this. You'd have somebody who would watch a 5-minute tutorial, but they never understood why something works or what, like the mechanics or the physics of it. And so then because of that, they end up, they don't know how to fix their own problems. And so they spend the next 2 hours on Reddit and the forums asking for help because it didn't get explained in thorough enough detail. So I know it can be kind of challenging to sit through like an hour discussion, but you often learn, I think, what's going on and how things actually work, and you can kind of solve a lot of problems and really kind of get good details. So you see, this works really well now. This has just a angular speed sensor stability system, so I can drift it and everything else. So this has good performance now, and so I can do some fun stuff with this car, as you can see. So this will be fun for Vice. That's working. I'll show off some other things. Again, Vice's car is, you know, it's a scripted series, so you're not going to get, like, you'll see some of it, but you won't get to see too much of the detail, so I figured to show it. So it has reverse lights. This is based off the Ferrari Testarossa, which the inspiration for Vice was Miami Vice, of course. And so they went to Ferrari and they asked for some Testarossas, and they said no. And so what they did was they took Corvettes and they made them look like Testarossas. And so they're a little bit weird looking. And so, so this is set up to be like the Testarossa. And so the Testarossa was like, you know, the cool car when we were kids because Miami Vice was on. And so it had these big fins that would come across here. And then it had the intakes because it was rear engine. And so it had a flat 12. So Vice's car is a flat 12 like a Testarossa. And then the Testarossa had those same fins on the back here, and so that's what that finnage is back there. And then inside here, he has all of his, I did bang something. You have a bunch of stuff, so we can actually do missions in that. I banged up the front of the car, so this might not work, but let's go ahead. And I showed this on the Discord, but it is, let me respawn it. What 80s car is complete without, and I'll show you in a second. What 80s car is complete without pop-up headlights? So it has pop-up headlights, so kind of a kitschy, you know, 80s car with pop-up headlights, but I actually like the look of the non-pop-ups better, but you have to have pop-up headlights. And the other cool thing with this car is if you look, has about a perfect 50-50 weight balance, so when this goes over a jump, it sits pretty flat, so I can actually kind of go over some jumps and not completely destroy it. So let's go ahead. What else do I want to work on? So this is kind of cool. This is my de-icing system. I made this. I put it in the new plane. I'm trying to get modules done. So this system, if it detects precipitation with a rain sensor and the temperature is below 0, you get an ice warning, and you have to turn on your de-icing system. So this is actually de-ice, and so what you do is you let ice build up, and then you break it off with essentially they're like balloons. They're pneumatic boots. And so as you can see, you de-ice it, and it will, I think it will wait. It'll take 10 seconds for that to go, and then I think after a certain amount of time, it will come back. And so that's how it would happen in real life. You get a light telling you, how's it going, officer? It would tell you you have ice. You turn on the boots inflate, they deflate, inflate, deflate, inflate, deflate. They go through a cycle. Then you shut them off. And then after a while, you'll start building up ice again. You'll get an ice warning. Turn on the boots. They'll, again, inflate, deflate, inflate, deflate. Most of my experiences with Hot Wing where it melts them off and you don't ever have to worry about that, which is better. So like one thing I'm trying to do more of now, which it takes me a little bit of time to get it going, but I'm trying to find where we're at here. I think it's just on the car. There's so many builds going on right now. So here's my car parts. So like this is my module for building cars. And so one of the reasons I can spit out cars super fast now. Oh, thank you, officer. Appreciate it. One of the things it makes it super easy for me to build cars now because this is a car. This has the seat. It's connected to the gauges. It's connected to. This is a pretty complex light panel which does RGB values. So you get dim brakes. You get so like if you turn on your headlights, it gives you a dim red light. If you step in your brakes, it gives you a dark red light, a bright red light. If you go in reverse, they turn white. So this is a multifunction RGB, so that's why this panel that's light is enormous. It has stability system, it has a gearbox in there. And so it has everything in there that you need. So like I can put a car together really fast. So like I put a couple cars together super fast. Like this one got put together fast. This is where the system came from, but like I put the insect together super fast because this was, all I did was, you can see it has all the parts from that panel. It has all those panels hidden in there, and it's super quick to put one together. And then the transmissions are not too bad to go through. Yeah, I'll get into RGB. I had to refresh myself when I did this panel, so I wanted to kind of refresh myself. You know, kind of looking at it pretty quick. Like this is the RGB section down here. It looks kind of daunting, but at the end of the day, what this is like, you have to meet certain conditions to get certain values. And so one of the neat things is the 255 red is in most of my lighting. And so that stays. And so essentially all you're doing with RGB is depending on the color, you want to give it a different R, a different G, and a different B value. And so if you want red lights, I forget what red is. Red might be, white is 255, 255, 255. I think red is 25500. And so by using those numbers, if I want white lights, I trigger it so that it will give me 255, 255, 255. If I want red, I trigger it so it gives me 25500. And then I have a multiplication here. And so if you see it's x times y divided by x. What that is so this goes through here. As you can see, this is my R. That goes in here, and then it multiplies it by this. This is how bright it is. So you see how this says dim lights? So my dim lights are 0.2. So the equation is 255 times 0.2 divided by 0.2. And that will give you a dim red light. And then if I want bright lights, let me see my bright lights. Bright lights right here is a 1. So if I have a 1 go through, so as you see, this is bright lights is a 1, bright, that's dim is a 2. So this allows you to have dim lights or bright lights. So let's launch. I'll do a proper tutorial of that. You know, I'm always looking for tutorials. Like I said, I started to do a transmission tutorial. It's going to be super dense, so because it's super dense, I need to keep it flowing so people will be able to watch it and it's not miserable. But like, say I turn on this car, you notice no lights. If I turn on the headlights, see how they're dim? Now if I press the S key to step on the brakes, they go bright. And so then I press back on the W key, they go dim. If I do a directional, now they turn yellow. If I do the other directional, they turn yellow. My directionals are a pain to shut off. I have to try to get both of them at the right time. And then if I turn on hazards, you'll notice they both go yellow. And then if I put it in reverse, this color's screwed up now. I need to fix it. It's like a baby blue instead of a white, but your reverse light should be white. So I think what I have is, let me actually check it really quick. I bet I know what's wrong with it. Let me see if I can figure it out here in a second. So I gotta move to the right screen. I have like 900 windows open. So I bet you if I go paint and I go 255, 255, 0. Nope, that's yellow. Okay, so what is, let me see, this? One of them is going to be pale blue. There it is. So I have this inverted. So it's supposed to be 255, 255, 255. I'm missing this 255. That's why it's giving me that pale blue. So I would need to make sure that one goes up. So that's what the problem is. So I just need to fix it. But you see, I just get pale blue lights. So I will go into RGB. I'm going to put that on my list. That's a good one to go into, is RGB. Transmission it's not bad. If people are interested, I could do a live stream on transmissions as well. I could even go into it a little bit, but I'll go to a little bit right now. I'm kind of thinking of things to do, but let's see. RGB tutorial, I'll just write that down so I remember it. Yeah, there's a place on the Discord that you can put requests as well. That way, if I'm kind of hurting for trying to find one or see what, you know, sometimes like I know that like a tutorial for transmissions will take me all friggin' day. So it's like sometimes I'm like, I'll try to get it something a little bit quicker. But I'll show you this really quick. So I started working on part of the transmission tutorial, and I just need to fix. It'll take me a second to just try to get this set up where I can have this zoomed in where I want. So stand by really quick. It's gonna take me a second to get this set up here. All right, let's see if I can. Just waiting for that to catch up. Should go over to display capture in a second here. I just have to wait for the delay. Okay, does not want to do it. What's it doing? I'm trying to get this working here. There we go. Okay, so there's display capture. Let me see if we can't fix it where I want it. Alright, so anyway, here's display capture. So this is like the transmission chart that I use. And so I highly recommend if you're going to be doing transmissions, you can, this is one of the best things that you can get going on is, I see a lot of people try to do transmissions, and what they do is they change a value on one of the gearboxes randomly, and then they go try to test it and drive the car and see what it does. And that's, you learn a little bit from that, but it's a pain. So this is what I do is I set up this chart, and I'll quickly build the chart. So we take our header here, and so the big thing with gearing is you have to understand its fractions. And so once you kind of know its fractions, and so it's numerator, denominator, the top of the fraction, the bottom of the fraction. But if you think of it as engine wheel, that really helps you to kind of understand it. And so on one of these is going to swap those. So what I do is, the first thing I was doing when I'm building a car, a truck, or something like that is if I want it to work well right off the bat without me having to spend like 4 hours getting the gear ratios right, is I go online and I find, let me find it real quick. So let's go to Eaton Fuller. So this is a transmission that I've actually used IRL. And so if you go on the Eaton website, it has, these are truck transmissions. This is a medium duty truck, so like a box truck like that you see driving around town. You know, and so if you get on there, you'll see this great chart, and this tells you the gear ratios. And so if you see, first gear is a 7.2, 3.89, 2.2, 1.39, and fifth gear is a 1-to-1 ratio. And then if you look in the 6-speed, which I've driven the 6-speed as well, it goes down to a 0.78. And so these are your low gears, these are your high gears. The smaller the number, the more high gear you're going. So it's as though the arrow is pointing toward the engine, it's a smaller number, away from the engine, a larger number. And so the first thing I do is if I'm going to build a truck transmission or a car transmission, I look that up. So I think I had a, let's see, transmission. I think I had one that I looked up. Let me try gear ratios. I had a link, so right here. Is this the one? I think this is the one. No. I had one earlier that I found. It's a Ford one, but if you look at these ratios, first gear is like a 3. So the truck has a much higher ratio because it needs that torque to get moving. So this is like a car is like a 3, 2, 1, 1, you know, in a 4-speed. So the truck goes from 7 to 1. And the tractors I've driven in real life go from like a 15 to 1 because you need all that extra power to get moving. So the first thing I do is I find a chart like this and I look at what the ratios are, and that's going to be the quickest way to get moving. And so then I go in here to desired ratio, and that's say 7.8. What was that? 7.8, 3.8, 3.8. I think it was a 2.2, 2.2, 139, and a 1. So 1.39 and a 1. And so this kind of tells me what I want to end up with. And then what I do is I go in here, and I'll show you the formulas too. It's not hard. I'm not really great at spreadsheets. There's probably plenty of people who are a lot better than me. And so if we go in and we look at this here, so I put in my desired ratios. That's what I'd like to get close to. They don't need to be perfect. I'd like them to be close to here. And so this is our super simple chart. These are the number of gearboxes I have in game. So in this case, I'm going to use 4 gearboxes to get my ratios. If I needed a 5th, as you can see, I have a bigger chart up here. It goes all the way up to 10. Yeah, random trend. You know, it's funny. You know, I got a comment the other day. Somebody's like, "Oh, you know, I learned a lot from your gearing tutorial. It might have been a little long." And I understand that impulse. You see an hour video, and I understand people are like, "I don't want to sit here for an hour." But I've seen people who they watch the 5-minute tutorial, and then they go to Steam discussions and they go, "I followed this tutorial and I don't know why it's not working." Well, the person who built the car in the tutorial, it weighed something. It weighed a certain amount. And you build something, and if it weighs 3 times as much, guess what? You need a lower gear ratio. And so they don't tell you that in the short video. And because you don't understand the basics, the mechanics of it, you don't know why it's not working. Well, if I jump in one of my builds and I go and I try to take off in first gear and it stalls my engine, guess what? I need lower gear ratios. If I take off no problem, but my top speed is not as much as I want, guess what? I can go higher because I didn't stall in first. And so these are some things you need to know. And once you know these things, you know how to diagnose your problems. And so I highly recommend this type of chart because, so right now, let's go ahead and do it. So we're going to try to use 4 gearboxes in-game. So 4 of the in-game gearboxes. Each one of these gives me 2 gears. All right. I usually use third as reverse just because. And so then underneath there, you'll see these carrots. So what that is doing is that showing me whether it's facing the engine or away. So this is away, away. This one I haven't decided yet. This one is towards the engine. So this, I can get up to like a 5-speed pretty reliably with 4 gearboxes. And it allows me to, now there are ways, of course, you can do it with fewer gearboxes, but I find this is the best way to do it where you can always change gear ratios if you need to. And so we want to get a 7.8 to 1. So we'll start with a 3 to 1 gearbox. And so this, on this one, as you can see, it's engine wheel. Now, when we reverse it, it's going to be the other way. It's going to be wheel engine. So I always keep it numerator denominator, but that's going to be your engine. You turn your engine 3 times if the arrow's pointing away, and you get 1 turn of the wheel. And that's the best way to think of it. So we want to get to, so it's that right there would be As you can see, that would be a 6 to 1, right? That's not enough, so we put in a 3. Now that's a 9 to 1. So this is a pretty simple formula. It is this times this times this times this. So when you multiply your fractions, you multiply your numerators, and then you multiply your denominators, and your numerator goes over your denominator, and then this just reduces it. So it takes this and it divides it by that. It takes this, divides it by this. So 9 divided by 1 is 9 over 1. And that reduces it, and so it will look like this. And so as you can see, we're at a 9 to 1. We want a 7.8, right? So what we do is, if we look at gearbox 4, it's pointing the other way. So this is now our gearbox that will raise up our gear. It will get us higher. And so what we could do is we could start with a 6.5, right? That's one of our ratios. But we have to do it backwards because the gearbox is backwards. And so I wish they would do this in game where if you flipped it, the ratios would go backwards, so it would help people understand. But if you look, this is going to be 5 turns of the engine gives us 6 turns of the wheel. So that's why if you think of this as engine wheel, which is actually better than numerator and denominator, but engine wheel, this turns the engine 3 times for 1 of the wheel. That's giving you muscle. That's giving you strength. That is trading RPS for torque. If the arrow is pointing towards the engine, I'm only getting 5 rotations of the engine, but I'm getting 6 of the wheel while you're trading your torque for your RPS. And so now if you look at it, that's a 45 over 6. If you did this without the chart, you have to do all that math constantly. If you make any errors, you're like, why the hell isn't this working? Well, it's because you screwed your math up. Putting in the chart, as long as the chart's set up right, as long as all the formulas are in there right, it will do all the math for you. So you can see I got a 45 over 6. Well, now you're trying to, what the hell is a 45 over 6? Well, this is pretty simple. It's 45 divided by 6 gives me 7.5 over 1. Well, look at the ratio I wanted, 7.8. So that's pretty close. That's within 0.3 of the ratio I want. So bingo, we found our ratio. The next one's a 3.8. I could do this, I could do any of the 3 to 1s here. Now this 5, 6, let's put that back in there. All right, so there is a 2.5. So I have to decide what I want to do with this. And so I could go higher, I could go lower. I tend to, let's try 2-1 like that. 5-1. So let's actually involve this reverse gear here. So because we're doing a truck, what we're going to do with this reverse gear is, because it's a truck, we're going to face this reverse gear away. Now, each of these, we get 2 ratios. All right, so we can, let's just do this. Let's do 3-1 on that one, okay? So 7.5, let's do a 2-1 here. All right, so now that is a 5 to 1. All right, and so this is going to be our second ratio. Each of these we get 2 ratios. Reverse, we have one of our ratios is reserved to be our reverse gear. It's a -1, so we can't use both of them on this one. So we have to be very careful what we pick to put in here. All right, and so what I'm going to do here is, because it's facing away, let's do something. Let's move, I'm trying to think, this one here. No, let's not do that yet. Okay, so this one's fine. This one here is 3 times 2 is going to be 6. And then I need to boost this one up, but I need to boost them all. So let's go ahead and boost this by a 6.5 and see where that gets. That. Nope, I didn't put the 5 in. That would be why. That's insane. Okay, so that's now a 9 to 1, right? So let's boost this one up. And these cancel each other out, so we need to go to the next one, which is a 3.2. 7.2, pretty close to 7.8. All right, so now with third gear, because that's a reverse, we need to do this on all of them. So not a big deal. This is gonna lower all our ratios completely. So we're gonna get more like a truck. So low ratios truck, high ratios car. All right, and so now those are all in. So you see there's a 6 to 1, that's too much. So we need to determine what's our second ratio here. Let's actually go, if we did this as a 1 to 1, you notice we're at a 3 to 1. So that's pretty close. It's not right in the money, but I kind of want that a little bit lower. So let's go ahead and let's determine what our second ratio is going to be. So that's a 6 to 1. And we need to determine what our second, let's do 2, 3 on this. That's a 4.8, so that's pretty good, but not perfect. So let's make this ratio here. This one we can have 2, right? Actually, I don't want to go 2 in that one. So close. Let's go, that's pretty close. That's a 4.8, so we have two choices. We could go low, which is we could go low, which would be like this, which is a 2.4, or we could go, let's go high on this. So let's do this. Let's go to a 4.8. So it jumps from a 7.8 to a 4.8. That's pretty good. I don't like this jump of the Real Eaten Fuller anyways. This is a really low gear. This is starting to get too high for me. And so we're now jumping from a 7.8 or a 7.2 to a 4.8. That seems more of a reasonable jump to me anyway, so let's keep that. Next one's a 2. So the 2 should be reasonably easy. Let's do, this one can't change. So if you do a 3 here, that's going to be a 3.6, and then if we did a 2 over 3 here, 3, that's a 2.4. So that's almost perfect. All right. So remember, this one I can only have 2, this one I can only have 2, this one I can only have 2. So I'm kind of stuck in here with this one as a 2-1 and a 3-1, but I might be able to change that later. So let's keep that in mind. All right, so the next one we want is like a 1.2. So a little bit over a 1. And so we kind of want to decide what we want to do with that. So I need the lowest ones I can get. So let's say 2 to 1's the lowest one I can get on that. 1 to 1 on that. That's 2.4. All right, there's a 1.6. So we're within 0.3 of the gear ratio we would want. Now this one's going to be hard to get a 1 to 1 because I have a 2 to 1. So this is as low as I can go on this one because I already have 2 values in this, is a 2 to 1. So what I'm going to have to do is I have to put in a 2 to 1. This one has to be the same. But as you notice, this one allows for 2 values, and I only have 1 in there so far. So you notice this number comes up as a 2.4. If I put in a 2.3, I'm going to get the same value as this, 1.6. I want to get down to a 1. Well, all I have to do is keep stepping this number up. So let's try a 9.5 in our gearbox. There's a 1.3. Let's keep going up. Let's do a 2.1. 2.4. I screwed that up. 2 to 1. There's a 1.2. As you see, we're getting lower and lower and lower. So if you understand how this is working, this is dragging the gears to a smaller number, which is a higher ratio. And so we're going to keep going up. What's the next one? 5.2? 5.2, I think. It's got to be a 5.2, yeah. 5.2.96. So as you can see, that gives us our ratio. So I have yet to get back in the game and program my gears. And so because I haven't had to get in the game there, I haven't wasted a ton of time. I've now figured out my gear ratios that I want for my truck. 7.8, so I have a 7.2, a 4.8, a 2.4, a 1.6, and a 0.96. So now I have gear ratios that mimic the real-life gear ratios. And so let's go ahead and I'll pull this in, and we'll use these ratios, and I'll reprogram one of my trucks. So we'll go in here, and if we pick up the tow truck, which I know works and has the same 4X, this 4x gearbox, let's save this for tow live stream, because I don't want to screw this gearbox all up. All right, so now if we look at our gearboxes in here, we have those 1, 2, 3, 4 gearboxes. All right, we want to make sure they're facing the right way. So if we look where our engine is, away, 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 towards. Looks familiar, doesn't it? This is what I did before. And so this works. So now what I do is I can bring on, let me see if I can't bring that in so you guys can see it as well. Kind of do it as a dual thing here. All right, let's get display capture up, and you should be able to see it now. Okay, so if we look at this now, let's see. It's going to be a pain for me to try to keep this up at the same time. So if you look at these ratios, what I'm going to do now is I need to take these ratios and get them into the microcontroller. And so this chart gives me all the information I need. It tells me where my gearboxes need to be. Away, 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 towards. So now if I look at this, away, 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 towards, bingo. That's done correctly. All we have to do is flip around. One of the reasons I use this one is this one doesn't matter if reverse is pointing forward or reverse. So that's super easy to flip around, and then I always have one here that I can drag it. So this allows me to drag all my values up. This allows me to drag all my values down. And so if I want to say get this one to go to a bigger number, all I have to do is I can go from 6.5 to a, what is it, 3.2. And that will make these even higher. So watch this. If I put in a 3.2, it has to be all the way across. Now it's a 9:1. This one will go up as well. So I could raise every single one of my ratios. So if the truck is stalling, I can raise all my ratios by changing one number. If I want to lower all my ratios, I can change them by doing one number. So that is really helpful. So if we go ahead, I'm going to put that on the other screen. And we'll go ahead in the microcontroller. I'll show you how this interacts with the microcontroller is for setting up a transmission. There's transmission. There is Stormworks Basics car right here. All right, and so if you look here, this is the transmission portion of it. So the transmission portion is pretty simple. It's not hard to convert to an automatic. I usually do a manual. If you understand how manual works, it's easy to convert things to an automatic. And so if we look at this here, I have a simple up-down counter. I use my up-down arrows on my keyboard for shifting gears. So this is simple. It's going to count up from, we actually have a 5-speed in our, that we just made. So let's go to a 5-speed. So this is going to be -1 is reverse. 0 is neutral. And then we have forward gears 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like we just made in our chart. All right, next thing I do here, I put a bunch of these booleans, and I highly recommend doing the boolean. You'll notice they're barely filled out. The most full one I have is this one. It has 2. And you could put an OR. And so the reason why I don't put an OR anymore, I've done it before, is this. Let's say I want to build another truck. Well, it's super easy for me to steal the panel from this and just hook it up and it works. But then I get into, okay, I want a 7-speed transmission. Well, I need more gears. Well, guess what? Your booleans start getting, your ORs, right? If this already has 2 values, I would have to delete the OR, put in a boolean, and then I'd have to redo it all. This gives me extra nodes. I can even go in a boolean, which if you don't know what these are booleans right here. I could go to this one. This one has 8 values. So I could even hook this up, and I can make really complicated transmissions with that. So anyway, we're going to go in this, and I'll try to bring the chart up. Hopefully you guys can see it. So now setting this chart up, let's do this. Let's disconnect all of these. I'll walk you through each step of this transmission. So if we look at here, pretty simple. I have my channel 4, which is up-down. If it reads a 1, or if it reads a -1, it's going to pulse, and that means that I have to push it each time to get it to click. It won't just click if I hold it. Goes to an up-down counter. Increments 1, it's clamped between -1 and 5. Then we go to thresholds. We have -1, that's my reverse. 1, that's my first forward gear. 2 is my second gear. 3 is my third speed. We'll call them speeds because that's your shifter, where your shifter position is. 4, and then 5. That's your 5th shifter position. Next, what we want to do is we want to have a bunch of booleans. This is X or Y or Z or W. If you go to operators, it will tell you which one to use. So X or Y or Z or W. So if you do any of these, it will flip the gear from the first ratio to the second ratio. Pretty simple. So those all go in and they connect to my gears. The reason 3 is up here is, remember, 3 is my reverse gear. The only thing 3 does is reverse me. So we take the -1, hook it up to third gear. So that's going to switch me from that ratio we picked, which is a 6.5, to a 1, -1. All right. Next thing we're going to do is hook up first gear. So let's look at the chart. And if we consult the chart here, we look and we see that first gear, what I want to do is I want to look at this. I want to see which one is going to be my default on position, or my off position really. Which one's going to be the top value, which one's going to be the clicked on value. So I do it by which one comes up more. So if you notice, we have 3.1 comes up once, twice, and then we have 1.1 comes up once, twice, 3 times. So 1.1 is going to be my default, and 3.1 is going to be my triggered on. So if we know that 3.1 is my triggered on, what we need to know is when does that happen. I'll bring the chart back. So if we look, 3.1 is triggered in first gear and in second gear, right? So first and second. So this is 3.1 triggered on. So we need first and second gear. And that's going to be when we're in first or second gear, that's going to flip the gearbox to 3.1, right? So that one is done. So first gear is done. Second gear, second speed rather. Second speed is 3 to 1 is triggered. We already did that. And 2 to 1. All right. Stand by really quick. I just want to figure this. Oh, so gear 2 here, we need to go through gear 2. Sorry, a little bit confusing there. Gear 2, we're going to look at it. We're going to count the 3 ones. Once, twice, 2 to 1 happens 3 times. 2 to 1 is our default position. 3 to 1 is going to be our triggered on. So when do we trigger on 3 to 1? First gear, and we triggered on in third gear. So 1 and 3. So 1 goes here, and 3 goes here. That triggers on second gear. All right, so now we need to figure out when do we trigger on fourth gear, because remember, third is our reverse. We can skip right to fourth. Now, I could have made it fourth, but I just used third because that's what I've been using, and it just works fine. So fourth, we're going to look at fourth. Fourth is 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 2-5. All right, so obviously, this is going to be our triggered off position, and this is going to be our triggered on position, because we only need to trigger this once. If we did it the other way, I'd have to drag 4 of those lines, using up precious space when I could drag 1. So in fifth gear, I use this ratio. So in fifth gear, I use this ratio. I think I screwed one up. I have to check. Let me check one really quick. So down here, okay, no, that's fine. I was checking this one. This one is the default position, so we're good there. All right, so there's one more gear we have to consider, and that is reverse. Now, this will give us reverse, but it will give us reverse at the default positions, which the default positions are 1-1, 2-1, 6-5, 2-3. So that is going to be a 1.6. So if we look here, the default gear is fourth, and we can tell that because look at the gear ratio that's not attached to anything. This is with all of our gearboxes in their default position, in their off position. So that will be our reverse if I don't plug in any other values. Now, think about it this way, right? We want a low gear to be able to start from a stop. If we're stopped and we have a heavy truck, we need a low reverse. And if we go back to the Eaton Fuller site, look at what our reverse gear is, 7.22. Our reverse gear is the same as our first gear. So let's make our reverse gear the same as first gear. So we need to look at first gear. We need to trigger on 1, and we need to trigger on 2. And if we trigger on 1 and 2, that will give us a low third gear, or a low reverse gear. So we need to trigger on 1 and 2. Now this is going to give us the same ratio in reverse as in first gear right here. So these two share the same gear ratio, but this one is just reversed. All right, so we'd update that. And then let's go into the truck. All right, so next thing we need to do is we'll take our chart, and what I want to do is, again, we need to find out what's our default off position, what's our on position. So off is 1 to 1, on is 3 to 1. So we'll go to our gear, and we'll look at the first gear here, and this is going to be our off ratio is 1 to 1, and our on ratio is 3 to 1. We look at our second gear. Default position is 2-1. The on position is 3-1. So 2-1 is off. 3-1 is going to be on. All right. And then this reverse here, it's always going to be 1 -1 when we trigger it on, and it's always, in our case, going to be a 6-5. All right. That's how that's always going to be. And if we look, it's always going to be a 6-5 because the other one is reserved for reverse. This one is going to be 2-3, except for one chance of a 5-2. So we're going to go to the last gearbox. It's going to be 2-3, and then it's going to be 1-5-2. And that sets up our gearboxes. And I just have those all connected, and so I just re-geared this truck from what it was to a new gear ratio. So this is good for, I can use the same microcontroller for a car or a truck. I just have to change the values. And so we go and test it really quick, and I forget how to shut this door. It's over here. There we go. All right, so we want to listen to this here. So parking brake is coming off. It's in neutral. We're going to shift it in first gear, and we're going to start driving. As you notice, we didn't stall. I have it floored. Now, this is one of the things that's important in trucks. You don't really get... let's check this really quick. My tack's not hooked up. Let me hook my tack up. TAC is not hooked up correctly. Where are you? RPM. Why is that TAC linear speed? Why is TAC hooked to linear speed? That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, I mislabeled. So TAC should be hooked up to RPM. I just want to be able to look at our TAC, so our tachometer. I convert everything to RPM, so I have to convert my TAC over. That's why it's like that. Alright, so we're going to go in. So as you can see, we have... That's probably wrong, but I fake it anyway. So it's not reading a real RPS. Let's actually make it read real RPS. Sorry, I keep going back, but this will help everybody understand it. So we'll go to TAC. Will be strict RPM. RPS, rather, sorry. I tend to fake them. I want them realistic to what they really should be. And if you did 1400 RPM in game, it would be super loud and it would create a lot of heat. So I fake it. I tend to increase it. So if we shut off parking brake released, key comes on, we go in first gear. TAC, as you can see, we're at 4.7 RPS. I'm going to floor it. Now, whatever my max RPS is, it's going to go to, and it's never going to go beyond that because the pit is controlling it, right? So that's 14.4. It's probably set to 15. I let it go a little low. You notice our speed is at 12 miles an hour. I have it floored. We will never go faster, and it's simple math. Unless I'm going downhill and gravity's helping me, I will never go faster than 12.6, whatever it was. And the reason is the engine is turning at a certain rate. It's going through that gear ratio. It should be a 7.2. So it would be whatever the gear ratio is, 14.5 RPM divided by 7.2. So let's say, you know, quick math, it's a 2. So our engine is moving at 7, and is it moving at 14, and that's moving at 2. So our wheels are moving at 2, and we can actually figure out the diameter of our wheels by this. If we're going, what's linear speed? It's 2 point something, of course. So let's say 2, miles an hour to linear speed. Let's say our linear speed is 6 meters per second. So I can figure out how many meters the diameter of my tire is by the speed, because my tire is moving 2 rotations. So I can figure out how long the diameter of my tire is by figuring out my speed. All right, so now let's shift to second. So as you can see, we go up in speed. As you can see, we're up to 18.9. We'll never go faster than that unless we're going downhill. Now, this doesn't matter in cars all that much. It matters in trucks a lot. If you're trying to go downhill with a heavy load, let's say of 80,000 pounds pushing you down a hill, this allows your engine to brake you. You probably heard of engine braking. A lot of people have heard of it and have no clue what it is. The engine will not allow you to go faster than the speed. And so even though I have it floored, I can't go faster than 18.9 until I shift gears. And now we're going to go up, and the next gear is a 2.4. So if we talk about our, the spacing between our gears, it's a 7.2 to a 4.8. Then it's a 4.8 to a 2.4, and you can see the speed differences here. First gear, 12. Second gear, 18. Third gear, 36. You notice, as we're going up higher in the box, we're getting a bigger speed change, right? Because an object in motion tends to stay in motion. We don't need as much torque anymore. The truck is moving. We don't need all that torque. Shift up another gear. We're up to 54. So first gear was good for 12 miles an hour. Or the first gear. First gear is good for 12 miles an hour. Second gear is only good for another 5 miles an hour. Yeah, but it was almost. Now, it's actually more closer to 6. It's almost 19. So it's about 6 miles an hour. This one is worth, double that almost. This one goes up another, 50%, more than 50%. And now where we're at, we're probably at a 2.4. Here's a 1.6. Or up to 86. And that's top gear. So that's 86. So as you can see, this transmission works better than the one I had in there. We'll keep this one. I had a super low transmission just because with this tow truck, I need to be able to tow cars. But you notice, that allows me to have a truck that has a lot of grunt, but I can still do 86 miles an hour. And one thing you'll notice, do you see my wheel spinning? Or my wheel smoking? No. And that's something a lot of people have when they first ask is, why are my wheels smoking? Well, in real life, the only time you'll smoke your wheels is if you're spinning your wheels too fast. And so that's if you're using a low gear ratio. So if I go in first gear, rev way up, dump the clutch, I have enough torque, I can spin the wheel. I can get it to lose grip. And I'm also turning, I can lose grip. But the only time I can really legitimately spin up my tires IRL is if I'm using a lower gear than I can, because I'm creating more torque than my tire will allow. In game, it's different. Watch this. If I upshift, let's slow down here. So let me upshift really fast here. Let's go in reverse really fast here. Okay, reverse. We'll go into first. Okay. So now we're in first gear. Now watch me spin up my tires. I'm going to go through them super fast. So see how I'm spinning up my tires? You can't do that in real life. In real life, you'd stall your engine. In game, it allows you to slip your wheels instead of stalling your engine out too much. And so I can, unlike in real life, what would happen in real life is if I went into too high of a gear too quick, I would lug my engine, it would take me forever to go, or it'd stall. In game, it allows me to squeal my tires. So if your tires are always constantly squealing when you're going a straight line, you do not have a good gear ratio. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is your gear ratio is wrong. And if you had the right gear ratio, as you notice, no squealing, no smoke. This one I don't know if it's even gripped up. I also recommend, if you're using a regular car, grip it up to 2 XML. That gives you a really realistic number, a really realistic performance. It acts like a real one. So I'll kind of end on gearing here really quick. We'll do, I'll show you what a proper truck transmission looks like. So this is, let's actually save this. This sucker works better than the truck that the gear ratios I had, so. Let's actually save that. So let's bring in an 18 speed. So here's the Mack Pinnacle 18 speed. So this is an 18 speed transmission. This transmission works a little bit differently. Eventually, I'm going to bring this out. People keep asking for it. I haven't done it yet. But this will come out in the workshop eventually. This is what a truck transmission looks like IRL. You have 2 gearboxes. You have your low range box, which this might be the high range box. I can't remember. Oh, let me do it. So you have your low range box and you have your high range box. And they actually used to have these transmissions in really old trucks where you had 2 shift knobs. And so you can go on YouTube and watch people where they shift 1 for 5 gears and then they put it in the neutral position and then they start shifting the other. So they have no hands on the steering wheel. They're shifting 2 shift knobs over to the right of them. Modern tractors, they have a pneumatic button and you push the switch and it flips from this gearbox to this gearbox. And so this is how you have it in real life, is you have, so this has 3 and then it has 2 more down here and it has a reverser in the middle. And so this is my low box and this is my high box. And what I do is, instead of having a pneumatic splitter that would range selector, which would switch it from your low range to your high range, let me just change over something in OBS really quick. Instead of switching over from your low box and your high box with like a bail that switches the gears, this has clutches. So it either clutches in the low side, so for all my low gears, it clutches in the low box. As soon as I go to my high box, it declutches this set of gears and it clutches in this box. And so it allows you to have those ratios like a real truck. And so this is an 18 speed. I have a 10 speed. That's 18 there. I don't know where my 10 is. I need to pull the 10 out of something. There's the 10 speed right here. I think I have do I have my 13 done? 13's not done. This has a 13 in it. But I'll do a 13 as well. So if we look at the 18 speed tractor, understanding more about this ratio, let's try to find this really quick. I gotta fix the view of the screen here. Let me see if I can find it really quick. So let's go in the transmission on this. So this transmission, as you can see, is a little bit more complicated. So this is what the transmission, this is why I say bring in those big booleans, because you want to, this is what it's going to look like if you do an 18-speed transmission. You need all these booleans because you need so many gear ratios. And I'm able to do this, though, with 8 of those in-game boxes. And with this, we have high and low clutch. With this tractor here with an 18-speed transmission, it has 4 speeds of reverse. So we can go 4 speeds of reverse. So this has 18, is it 18? Yeah, it's 18. They don't count them right. They count them low, 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 and then they have 16. But it's 18 forward speeds, 4 reverse speeds. And you need this in a truck because this truck here can haul the heaviest weights you could ever imagine at no problem because its first gear ratio is like a 14-to-1. So I'll actually bring up Eaton Fuller really quick and show you that. They have the, Eaton Fuller has their 18-speed transmission. Oh, I actually have it open already. Let's see. So let's see where we're at there. Okay, let's bring up the 18-speed transmission. So again, if you, instead of getting into this endeavor to try to figure this stuff out on your own, go online and find a chart. And so if you look at the chart here, it starts at low, 14.4-to-1. So again, you need that in a truck to get all that mass moving. You could easily have over 100,000 pounds you need to get moving. It does not want to move. And so you're turning your engine 14 times for every time the wheel turns once. Low gear is 12, so it's engine 12 times for every time your wheel moves once. 8, 7. So here we are getting in the range of that box truck. Remember, our box truck started at 7, but our box truck jumped from 7 down to a 3.89 or something. This goes from a 7 to a 6.05. That's less than 1 is the jump. 14 to 12 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. Notice, you're not jumping very far. In a car, think about it this way. A car, right, the only thing it's hauling is ass, right? You might have 1 person in the car. You might have, say, 4 people, maybe 6 at the most. So even if the people are big people, that's not a lot of weight compared to what a truck's hauling. So in a car, you can go from a 4 to a 2 to a 1 to a 0.9 to a 0.6. You can make those big jumps because the mass is not changing much. You don't have to move a lot of weight. And so with a truck, you are. So you notice the ratios are close. 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, almost a 2. 1, 1, 1, 1, 0.86, 0.73. So you notice how small the variations are. That is why you have so many gears. If you were to go from a 14 to a 7, you'd stall. If you were to go to a 14 to an 8, you'd stall. If you were to go to a 14 to a 6, you'd most certainly stall. If you were to go from a 6 to a 3, you'd stall. And so that's why you have so much of a smaller differential between the gear ratios, is because in a truck you would stall. And with a big diesel, you cannot achieve the RPMs because you have huge displacement. You have big pistons with a long stroke. They're moving up and down a long distance, so they can't go very fast, or you would break your rods. Essentially, you break pins and rods and everything, and you wear your engine out and destroy your engine. So because you can't achieve high rotational speeds, or else you break it, you have to, you change your displacement. You get bigger displacement for power. So if we look at this tractor here, we have 18 speeds. Let's go ahead and shut the door. Am I fired up? I am. Let's go shut off the tractor brakes. Now I have no trailer. All right, so we're bobtail. So let's click it into first gear and let's floor it. It is floored. Look at the speed, 5 miles an hour. That's realistic to what you really get in a truck. First gear is good for about 5 miles an hour. Now you'd say, why do you need all these gears? Again, you're trying to move 100,000 pounds. Now we're bobtail. I could start this bobtail in a higher gear. I could go up and I could start in, probably in real life, probably second or third. And I could start, no problem. Why? Because I'm not pulling any weight. If I tried that with a full heavy trailer, stall. So you can start in higher gears in a truck. Now, I wouldn't be able to shift down like that in a real tractor. I'd have to walk them through. But so we start in first. Look at the speed changes. So here we go. First. Watch my speed changes. It's going to go up to 5 maximum. Second gear. 6 maximum. Again, we have 100,000 pounds. We need to get that weight moving slowly. I can't trade my torque for speed yet. I need my torque to get going. You notice something here. We're going up about 1 mile an hour. There's the jump. So from 4th, we're able to pick up 2 miles an hour. 5th, 3 miles an hour. 6th, we picked up, what's that? What did we pick up? Differential, about another 2. Picked up another 3. Picked up another 3 right there. I spun my tires, that's why I did that. Picked up another couple there. Picked up another couple there. Now, as you see, we went up 7. Going up a little bit more there. As you can see how the box is working. As we get higher in the box, just like the car, right? The object in motion wants to stay in motion. We don't need to have those gear ratios as close to each other. We can afford to have big jumps because we're now moving the mass. That 100,000 pounds that's moving behind us has momentum. We're just keeping it moving. And there's 16. And the only reason we're not doing about 150 miles an hour right now is because I have a limiter. Notice it keeps ticking it down because it has a governor on there like a real truck. They're governed to, say, 65, 70 usually at most. You can, if you own the truck, you could probably, you know, cheat it up to 80. But you notice we're bobtail. So one more thing I'll show you at the truck is, so again, truck's designed to take weight. So the easiest way for me to bang on some weight, yeah, let's do this. Easiest way for me to bang on some weight here is to add a tank. Oh, I don't want that one. I want the other one. So here's the road train tanker. Ah, crap. I screwed that up. Let's see. No, 18 speed. Let's get that in there. And then I want to bring in the other tanker truck. The other tanker trailer, rather. All right, so this tanker is going in here. And we'll paste that, and then what I'll do is I'll add a spawner with some water in it. And so put the spawner in, and we'll just put water in there. Doesn't matter if it's fresh water or seawater, but we'll do fresh water. So this is an insane amount of water in here. So this is 55... I think that's got to be liters. One of these was wrong. It should be 14,000 gallons, I'm not sure what I have this set to. No, that's right. 55,000 gallons. This is going to hold 150,000 liters in this tank. And so what I can do is this. Let's find where it is. I can actually read the liters out if I can find it. There's, okay. So if I read this fluid meter, no, it's liters. We're holding 55,000 liters. It's supposed to convert it out to gallons, but I screwed it up. So that's 55,000 liters of water. That's 55,000 kilograms of water that we have in there, so double that in pounds. This is over 100,000 pounds of water, let alone the trailer's weight. So the reason why in life and in game you need that big 18-speed gearbox, the 10-speed will pull this fine, but not as easily. And so this is the reason why. So let's release the trailer brakes. So same deal. We're going to start in first. In order to get that big heavy load moving, I need that gear. If I tried starting in a higher gear, let's actually do it. Let's stop. Let's try to start in 5th. And I'll bang up the sound here. So let's hear if you can hear it stall. All right, 5th it will start in. Let's go higher. Let's go way up there. I want to stall this sucker out. All right, so see how it's bucking? The reason it's bucking is because I'm having to put the clutch in. So it automatically clutches this. If I go up really high, let's go to 18. It's not going to like it because it doesn't have the torque. So you see how it's bucking again? It's trying to get going with the clutches going in and out. So by having a low gearbox here, we can get this heavy load moving. And since we're already rolling, I could easily go into 4th IRL if the trailer's moving because there's no resistance, it's moving. And so now you notice I need all these gears to get this heavy load up and moving. Now watch this, the tack. I don't shift until it goes all the way to max. If I do that, I'm going to, in-game, you'll squeal the tires. In real life, you will... Oh, thank you, Jake. I appreciate that, son. If you did this in real life, if you shifted too early. First of all, in a tractor, you would never be able to do it. And the reason is, in a car, people who drive manual cars think they know how to work a manual. They do. They know how to work their manual. But in a car, you have what's known as synchronizers, and there's these little brass rings between the gear sets. And so, let's say in a car, you could be going 90 down the street and try to shift it in the first gear, and guess what? It might let you. It would let you do it once, and then you're off to the mechanics. But it would let you do it, and the reason is it has this brass ring, and they're between the gear sets. And as you push the gear into the brass ring, it will average the speed between the gear you're moving and the gear you're trying to mesh it with. And what it does, it pushes them together. So that gear is moving too slow, and your gear is moving too fast, the one that's hooked to the wheels, and now it pushes them together and tries to synchronize them. That's why it's called a synchro. And the issue is in trucks like this, you are the synchro. My job as a tractor trailer driver is I have to, if I want to shift up, okay, what I do when I shift up is actually, it's easier than shifting down. So I rev it out to 1400, I will shift it in the middle, and then I pull it out, shift it to the middle, and then I shift it to the next gear. And if I don't time it right, I won't be synchronized. I'll never get it in the gear. And what I have to do is I have to rev up, or most likely grab the next lower gear. So I have to rev up to put it in. Now, in order to shift down, I'm gonna do try not to do the Terminator and roll this tank and go right into the liquid metal factory. But so now to shift down, if I shift down here in real life, I'd never be able to do it, because I can't get the diesel to spin up high enough for me to shift down. So what I have to do is I have to let off the accelerator, let it get down to 1,000. Then what I do in real life is I would rev up, and I'd rev up to about 1,400 for the gear shift down. So as I go down, if I do it quickly, you notice that tack keeps coming up and up and up and up and up. I have to physically, in order for me to do it in real life, the way I shift the tractor down is I have to go, let me get it out of reverse so you don't have to listen to it. So the way I shift down in a tractor in real life is I let it slow down to 1100 RPM. I put a little bit of pressure on the shifter with my finger, and then as I let off the accelerator, I don't use the clutch. I don't use the clutch in real life when I'm driving a tractor on the road. The only time I use a clutch is starting and stopping. So, because I synchronize it manually, I don't need the clutch. The clutch is a nanny. And so you push on the gear shifter. When you take your foot off the accelerator, think about it this way. The gears are no longer pushing against each other really hard. And so when I let go with my foot, it allows me to unload the gearbox. They slide apart now. Then I put it into neutral. So it's going from the gear to neutral. Then I rev up with my accelerator. So I was at 1100 RPM. I rev up to 1400. Well, guess what? The speed of the engine now is going as fast as the speed of the wheels. And so because both gears are moving at the same speed, their relative velocity is 0, I can slip it into the gear. So when I downshift, I have to go off the accelerator, neutral, rev, downshift every time. So it's, off, rev, downshift, off, rev, downshift. If you screw up your rev, guess what? You have to re-rev. And so what you'll generally do is you will grab the next lower gear, because the truck is continually slowing down at this point. So you have to go, if you miss it, you just pick the next lower gear. So you rev up even higher. So now I'll go rev up to 1600 and I'll grab the next lower gear. So if I'm shifting from 5th to 4th and I miss it, I'll wait a beat, I'll wait a second, I will rev up to 1600 and I'll grab 3rd gear. And so you'll see a lot of new truck drivers, they screw this up because what they do is they keep trying to re-rev to put it into 4th. Well, guess what? They're going too slow now. So they're still trying to rev up to 1400, and the truck is saying, hey, man, you need to rev up to, you only need to rev up to 1100 for me, man. And so you're over-revving the engine. But what they should have done is just gone down to 3rd, and they can just give it a little extra rev on 3rd, and they'll grab 3rd. So you'll see veteran truck drivers, if they miss a gear, they'll grab the next lower gear, they'll just rev a little higher. And so if you understand the mechanics of the gearbox, you start to be able to do this. You know when to, okay, I need to skip a gear. And this, in an 18 speed like this, you'd be skipping gears all the time. I'm splitting this gear. Instead, I would go 3rd, you know, not with this heavy of a load. I put the trailer brakes on. No wonder not liking it. You know, so I could go from 3rd to 5th, and I'd be skipping that gear. And so you can see I can still do it on a skip in the gear. When would I not want to be skipping gears like that? Going up a hill. If you're trying to take 100,000 pounds of water up a hill, you would not be skipping gears. And so you'll see people all the time say, oh, you don't need 18 speeds, you don't need that in game. You might not, but I often will take this rig with 100,000 pounds and go up a big hill with it. Guess what? You need that 18-speed gearbox. So this, I could easily go on flat terrain like this and double tap out gears. And as you can see, no problem. Now, I don't want to shift yet. I want to wait till we get back up to 1400. But I can double shift the next gear. See, it takes me down to 1100. I don't want to go below 1100. If I go below 1100, my engine's going to lug. So I'll get back up to 1400. And you can see I can double shift and we're all right. Now I'm in the high box. I don't want to be doing that. So if you notice 18, I'm starting, okay, I'm doing all right now. So see it's slipping? See how it's doing this? What that's doing is the clutch is automatically feathering. So you notice the tack. That's not me doing that. I'm kind of driving like an idiot now, but I'm trying to get this to behave itself so I can show you. But see what the tack's doing? See how the tack is doing that? That's as though the driver was putting in the clutch, taking off the clutch, putting in the clutch, taking off the clutch. That's called feathering the clutch. Why do you feather the clutch? Because you would stall if you don't. So you notice how the tack is doing this, right? Remember, we drove this a minute ago with no trailer. I was able to go into 18th gear, no problem, right? I can't now. The trailer is too heavy, and I'm having to feather the clutch in order to keep it in gear. Going to 17th. See it doing it again? Okay, 17 is too high of a gear. I'm going to just ride the railroad tracks here. Let's go into 16. Is it feathering? Nope. A little bit, no, it's not even feathering there. It was me doing a turn. But notice, 16th gear, I can maintain the proper tack range. You generally want to be around in, like the Mac Pinnacle, you want to be around 1400 is your operating maximum. 1100 is your operating minimum. And so in game, because I have an auto clutch, you notice if I go higher, there it goes feathering again. See it feathering? That's as though the driver's sticking in and pulling out the clutch the whole time, right? You don't want to be doing that, so you downshift. And so that's, if you understand the mechanics of why the transmission works, how the power unit works, you start to understand why you need to build a certain way. And as much as people give the game crap for having physics that's not like real life, sometimes that's true, but a lot of the times, you know, math is math, it's going to work, you know, and so some of it is just, you know, you may not understand the minutia of why it's doing that. So, for example, this, you could go like this and be like, oh, something's weird, the needle's dancing. That's because the auto clutch is feathering it. If I didn't have an automatic clutch system, guess what would happen? It would stall the truck. If I go into 17th gear with this much weight in the back, it would stall. And so you wouldn't be able to, you'd just stall and you'd be like, I don't know why my engine died. And it's because the engine, what you would notice is the tack, instead of the tack going back up, the tack will keep going, dead. And your engine would die. Because you don't have enough torque to haul this much weight at this speed with this gear ratio. And so I need to go down to 16th to not feather my clutch anymore. And so I know, because I've driven this setup with these water tanks. I actually have a second trailer I put on here. I put on 250,000 pounds of water, of actually diesel and jet fuel when I go to the rig over there. And that's how I haul my diesel and jet fuel, is with a set of doubles that are, each of these is 53 feet long. And so that's insanity. You'd never do that IRL unless you're in Australia pulling a road train. But, and that's how you can do it, is with gearing. This has the same motor as the 10-speed. If I was in the 10-speed, I'd probably be going a hell of a lot slower. I would be going, I don't know, we can even pull up the 10-speed to show it, but I don't think I'll go in that much detail, but maybe do 50 miles an hour, you know, maybe a little bit more. But the thing with a 10-speed is the 10-speed has almost half the number of gears. And so you can still make it work. I've driven pretty much mostly a 10-speed. But you can still make it work, but this is what's going to happen. You're going to rev it out really hard. Instead of going to 14, you're going to run it out to 1600. And that wears out the engine more. And you're going to rev it out to 1600. And then when you shift gears with the super heavy load, guess what? Now you're down to 800. And you're lugging, so the truck's going to lug and lug and lug and lug, and it's going to make a lugging sound. That's why they call it lugging. And it's going to take a long, long, long time to speed up. Then you're going to get sped up, and you're like, oh, thank God, we finally got up to speed. And you're going to shift to the next gear, and it's going to repeat all over again. The 18 speed, I can shift gears, and you notice how little the tack moves. See how the tack moves a tiny little bit from top to bottom? You know, see it's feathering the clutch again. So this allows me, with this 18-speed transmission, to haul massive loads of water or whatever and not have that problem. Let's quickly do this. Bring it back, and I'm going to change one thing. I'm going to get rid of that water spawner. So, like I said, that was, you know, a huge amount of weight. Now let's give it a run and see if we can get into 17th gear. Now, sometimes it doesn't actually make the water weigh as much as it would IRL, but let's see how it performs. We hopefully should be able to get up into 17 and 18 with no water in that trailer. All right, now I should be able to start in a higher gear. We're in a much lighter load here. And you see it. Now, this won't stall. You saw how it wouldn't stall on me even when I was trying to before. That's because of the auto clutch. It goes clutch in, clutch out, clutch in, clutch out, clutch in, clutch out, clutch in, clutch out. So it'll keep me from stalling. So it's a nanny system. If I had to do it manually, it would probably stall because if I was doing it in real life, I actually have to do that. If I pull a set of doubles that are heavy, I have to feather first gear to get the tractor and the trailers moving. If I'm going uphill, especially if I'm starting on a hill, I really have to feather. I can't let the clutch all the way out. I have to feather it and let a little slip of clutch. So there's 9, 10, 11, 12. You notice I can knock through these gears much faster. It recovers a lot faster because I have a lot less weight back there. So that one spun. Okay, let's listen to that spin. This is something that would never happen in real life that happens in game. I'm upshifting into a spin. Why? Because the game will spin if you have too much torque, which is when it's supposed to spin. It will also spin if you have too little torque. So it's actually feathering it out. That's a game thing. This trailer is actually pretty heavy. This trailer has a lot of weight in there. That's all battle cannon pieces under the axles. So the water doesn't weigh all that much, but the trailer is heavy. So it's still too heavy for the tractor to be in 17th gear. And so, like I was saying, you would want something like this with this many gears if you're going up a hill. We're on flat terrain. If we went on a hill, you'd really start to notice that you want all these gears. Because as I'm going up that hill, you saw how I can double tap out. I can't really double tap out 18, but let's say we're going, let's slow down a little bit. So let's say we're going 12. I could probably double tap it to 14. Okay, double tap 14, no problem. Going up a hill, you would not be double tapping. You'd be 14, you'd be wringing its neck, you'd get it all the way up to 14, you'd not be cheating, you wouldn't be waiting to shift early. Okay, you notice the needles at max, it's not going up anymore. Shift now. You would not shift again if we're going uphill. You'd wait and wait and wait and wait. Okay, there it goes. It's all the way at the top. Then you shift. All right, that is how you do it on a hill, because you actually need those gears on a hill. So when people are like, oh, a truck doesn't need that many gears. Yeah, if you're going on flat terrain with nothing on your back, no, you don't need all those gears. If you're going up a hill with 250,000 pounds on your ass, you do need all those gears, because you'll never make it up the hill. You'll stall, and you'll stall, and you'll be like, why can I not get up this hill? And the wheels on this, I think, are double XML grip. They're up to 2s. And the whole reason is I set it up so that it works realistically. And I think if the devs just change the slider to a 5, I tend to do 2 for any road-going vehicle, and I tend to do 5s for construction. The reason is these wheels are fake. These actually don't power anything. These are power. So this has 4 in here, and then in order for it to make it work in game, I need 6. So this is a 6-wheel drive. This would be 8-wheel drive in real life. So because I don't have the grip that I would in real life, I have to up-grip these to 2s. And you'll also notice the tires will let the trailer slide. You notice how the trailer's not sliding left and right? That's because these are up-gripped to 2. Now, some of my construction vehicles, we pull, let me see. We pull, this is a regular road truck. That's gripped up fine. Let's do, I think it's mining. Where is it? Here it is, mining truck. This mining truck, these are gripped up to 5s. Why are these gripped up to 5s? It only has 4 wheels. So that tractor has 6 wheels driving it. This one only has 4. In real life, that would be fine because the contact patch is larger. You notice how much bigger these tires have? More of this tire's touching the ground. In game, we really don't get that acting precisely how it would in real life. So this sucker needs the tires gripped up to 5 to have the same grip to be realistic. So all my construction vehicles, this doesn't have electricity. This never got finished. Okay. Oh, I never hooked the door up at all. I think I jumped in through the window. So this one here, the tires have to be gripped up to 5. Oh, if I can remember how any of this works. The tires need to be gripped up to 5 to be able to get this one to work. I forget how I even run this one. But so that's what I recommend in game is grip your tires up XML. It's not cheating, it's making it more predictable. You'll notice if your tires aren't gripped up in game, you're spinning all the time in unrealistic situations and you don't know why, and it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't make any sense. You grip them up to 2, it now makes sense. Okay, they're spinning, and the thing that shouldn't make sense but does is in game, if you shift up too quickly, if you're going into too high of a gear, what would happen in real life is you would stall. What happens in game is your tires squeal. And so if you see me shifting up and I squeal tires, that's a game mechanic. You just need to understand it's happening. You know, and you'll notice that, like I was saying, with most of my cars, the wheels don't spin. And that's because a lot of people, they don't go into the minutia of gearing to get their tires to not spin. So for example, the Vice car here goes 137 miles an hour, and the tires will not spin in top gear if I don't, pull a turn. And the reason is because I have top gear is set correctly. If I geared it up more than it is, they would spin at all times. So let's get this in top gear. And I'm going to let off the accelerator a little bit and get back on it. Now we're going, try not to steer. Now we're in top gear. Notice my wheels aren't spinning. And that's because I have the right top gear. If I went up higher in the gear ratios, this would then spin unrealistically in top gear. And so I have this set up so that it shouldn't do that. So this is also designed to be a gnarly beast that you can drift in. But so of course if you turn in, you're going to spin. But you shouldn't be spinning if you're going on flat terrain. You should be, as you can see, no smoke. And so that means you probably have the wrong gear ratio. If your tack is reading low, which this one is not, that means your gear ratio is probably too high. So I've actually done this in the Vice car. I put too high gear ratios and it will spin the tires the whole time in top gear and it will give me the same speed. So it told me, okay, I need to lower the gear ratios. So I hope you guys found that interesting. I'm kind of meaning to try to get into doing a transmission tutorial, but you can kind of see how it's dense, and it really does take me about, it will take an hour, and you'll have to listen to it and go through, but you'll understand the concepts, and once you understand the concepts, you can spend the 5-10 minutes going through that gearing chart and not, I barely tapped that, and you'll spend 5 minutes going through the gearing chart getting realistic ratios. As you notice, I did that tow truck, and on the first crack, it went out and worked. Because I took realistic numbers from the internet, I plugged them into my formulas to know what gear ratios I needed, and then I put them in the truck and they worked. Because it's simple math, it has to work. There are some game mechanics that are a little bit funky, but beyond that, things will work. And so I really will put that together at some point. I spent a couple hours trying to record sections of it. But it starts to get to the point where I really get in the weeds, and I'm like, I need people to be like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So hope you guys found that interesting. I think I'm going to take a break. I really enjoyed streaming. I'm trying to do some more live streams, but, sometimes I try to, I kind of don't know what I want to work on. So as you saw, this meandered. We went from a small forklift to getting into gearing quite hard. A little bit of plane work, so that was fun. Trying to see if there's anything else cool I want to show you guys, kind of some behind the scenes. This helicopter I showed in the last episode, this is up and running. This one took a little bit of time to get going. This one's a little bit, I wouldn't say complex, but it's a little bit interesting because you have to use the propellers on the wings to be able to counteract the rotor torque. And so that took some interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm just reading some of the chat. And so that one took a little bit of time, but that's in the career build series now. I finally, so one of the things I did today, I'll show off the Vice boat a little bit. This thing was a pain, this is a hand-drawn logo. And so that took some work to get that fixed. I had to fix a couple blemishes in it. And I had one of these lines had 3 in it. It was driving me nuts. You'll actually see from, if you watch the Vice series, you'll see. So this was kind of cool. This is actually how I did the shots in the credits. It's at night, and I actually I just swoop in. That's how I do that scene. And if you notice, this looks like crap now compared to the new one. Because, where is it? Oh, I fixed it. Never mind, I fixed it. This is the fixed one. The old one, which I don't think I have a copy of the old one anymore, but the old one there was a big gap in it. It was like 3 wide instead of 1 wide. And so that one I had to fix. So one thing I did, like I was saying, is I spent today working on the Vice boat and trying to quote-unquote finish it. Of course, nothing's finished. And one of the reasons I want to finish the Vice boat interior was, because the exterior, the engines are running fine, a little tweaking here and there. I wanted to finish the interior because I built this mainly at first to be in the career build series because we didn't have a fast boat. And so what I can do now is I can repaint it non-Vice and get rid of the neon. And this can go back to being something we use in the career build series. So I'll probably have like the cigarette race team livery, which was this. So I'll probably have the cigarette boat livery, but I need to go back in and that has the finished kitchen in it. This actually isn't too bad off, but I'll go back with the Vice boat and repaint it this way, and then we'll have this boat back in the career build series so I can have a fast boat, because this thing's nasty. I'll take the Vice boat out. People are enjoying some Vice stuff, so. The Vice boat's pretty nasty. It screams. It's super stable. It took a little bit of while just to get that working up to where it's good. Vice is going to get a bunch of toys. There'll be helicopters. There'll be all sorts of stuff. Vice should be able to do everything. Oh, don't miss it. There we go. And so Vice boat is fast. Let's go ahead and we'll give it a challenge. It has 3 motors. They're big, nasty modulars. And then let's give it a challenge. Let's go 50. Let's go 55 on the wind. And so it has 3 engines. It's kind of interesting. I have to control them. WS is port. 3-4 is center. And up-down is star. But it's actually easy because I just hold W and 3 at the same time. Or S and 4. And I get it moving. Once it's moving, I can just crank it up. So we'll get out of dock here. And we'll go on a rip here. Let's it's Vice, so we have to go at sunset. As is good. And so this sucker will rip. And so what's our speed? We're doing, it will do about it does 109 consistently. It will do 120 in certain conditions. As you can see, we can go about, this is hitting about 100 before it bangs a wave, and it will slow down a little bit, but we're doing a pretty consistent 85 and 50% wind, as you can see. So this can, I have to fix that jump it a little bit. 55 is a little on the high end, but all you do in real life, you do what you do in real life is you'd actually slow down just a hair. We slow down a little bit, as you can see. You don't have to slow down much, and now it's behaving a little bit more. Slow down a touch, but you'd never be gunning it like this in this kind of weather. These are too big of swells. you'd knock it back. I could knock it back probably down to, I don't know, 60, 65, 70, which is still a good speed. So I'm just, okay, right about there. See where we're not getting unstable RPMs? So we're easily doing 50. It looks slow in this boat, but that's still 50 knots. And so if we take it down to about, well, I don't know, say about 40, we should be able to rip at 40. Yeah, there we go. So like this is how you do it in a real cigarette boat is, you know, they dance over the waves, so pretty much almost just the propellers are in the water when they're cooking. And so they rock like that. They do all, it's pretty much just these inboard outboards that will be in the water when it is ripping. Yeah, you wouldn't do too bad with, yeah, my back would be destroyed in these waves, certainly, but you wouldn't do too bad. They're deep V's, and like I said, you're skipping over them. Like these wouldn't be too bad, but those bigger waves, the 50s, were, yeah, you wouldn't be going full speed. But you see we're doing 105 knots, which is, you know, so we're doing over 120 miles an hour. There was 122, a little bit there. It will hit 120 to 120 in certain conditions, but so it rips. Fun boat, and the same one will come to Career Build Series. Just needs a different paint job. Be a little bit less ostentatious with neon. Vice man of the 80s. So, but this boat works really well, and I'm really happy with it. Usually don't like to do super fast boats, but this is thematically right. I just, when it's something's not realistic or like doesn't have a place in the real world, I'm kind of like, good. And so like this type of boat is meant to go 120 miles an hour. You know, so this does about a realistic speed. The Donzi, I'd like to make a small one, kind of Donzi size. The only issue is if we're going to put in a sleeping quarters in there, see how high that hatch is? The hatch needs to be about that high off the water or else it will flood. That's just a game thing. And so eventually I'll make like a Donzi that has no sleeping quarters that's a little bit smaller. I think the Donzi, the 38s, 38 footers. See you later, Citrus. Thanks for joining. You know, and so like the 38-foot Donzi has twin Merc 865s in it. And they're staggered, so one engine is actually in front of the other, which is pretty cool. So I think I might build a kind of a inspired Donzi, and that might actually go to Career Build Series. And it'll be a smaller boat. It will have all the external seating, but it won't have internal seating. It'll be a little less wide. I don't know what this is width-wise. Let's see. Or lengthwise, rather. I'm interested how, I forget how long this boat is. Get a quick measure on it. Pick it up. So this is, let's see. That is, so with the tips of the propellers, we're looking at 17.5 meters. What's that in the old Imperial units? Let's see. So 55 feet, yeah. So this is a 55 footer. So this is the beam to length ratio is correct for a race boat. The Donzi is a 38. So if you kept the same ratio, this is about, what is it, 8 meters, something like that wide. Maybe not that much. What are we talking? 3.75 meters, 8 feet wide. So we, you know, Donzi would be a little bit smaller, the 38 Donzi. So I might make a 38 Donzi for the Career Build Series. I think that would be kind of cool. This one has big old slammers in it because it's a little bit on the bigger side. But these are the motors in here, triples in there. They usually have triples, they have quads. A lot of them are triples, and then the smaller boats are running doubles because I think they're using the same heads on them. These I forget what they're called. These water units here usually are the same, and so they are fully moving. There's no rudders there. These will move, so they're proper inboard outboards. But it took a little bit of work to get the stability where I wanted it, but it's running really well now. It's just tuning. I was gonna get rid of the exactly the boat and the cars should be as ostentatious as the owners. And the, you know, I was going to get rid of the smoke, but these boats have rooster tails, and so I didn't want to lose power. And so one thought I was going to run an impeller with a nozzle and blow a water rooster tail and get rid of the smoke. But the smoke looks like a rooster tail, so it's super easy, and I don't lose any power running a smoke rooster tail. So, you know, I could put scoops. This has no scoops on it. I didn't put scoops back in here, did I? No, this has no scoops on it. If I put scoops on this thing would be even faster. I don't want it to go ultra fast. Doing 109 knots sustained. You know, 109 knots, 10 miles an hour. That is 125 miles an hour. So it's on speed where it's supposed to be. Yeah, the 80s did choose them. I was on my walk yesterday. I was doing a like if Vice was like a real TV show, and I thought of like I was theory crafting like he's actually a time traveler, and and you know, so I had some thoughts with that, but it was kind of fun. But yeah, Vice has been fun. The episodes will be out, of course, less frequently. They take quite a bit. I'll bring up the Da Vinci, and I'll show you what an episode of Vice looks like. Vice is a process, and you know they're only like 11 to 13 minutes long. Vice is a process. It's fun. I enjoy it, but it's definitely it's time consuming, so I can't get them out as quick as there. Well, let's see what a Vice looks like. I'll show you the behind the scenes on that sucker. So you see all the cuts. There's a lot of, because I need to cut in music, I need to cut in sound effects, so that's what Vice looks like. If you look in here, that's all the cuts. I shouldn't have done that. That's not going to show it to you. So like this is all the cut work in here. You see, this actually probably shows how cut works better. But see, like this is all cut and cut and cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. So this one is super duper cuts, you know, because like if you haven't seen it, this is like, you know,
give me good news,
doctor's conversation. So I have to flip from one to the other,
overnight for
and then I have to splice in the audio.
Anytime you need half price
and
neon, I know a guy.
Just pay the bill, and we will call it even.
Yes, Amnesia would be pretty good. So I had a thought on my walk that he's actually a time traveler, and that's like, you know how if you've ever watched Rick and Morty, he's actually a god. And, you know, and so it's like, you know, so Vice would be a time traveler, and so like, you know, he's like, I thought of, I have an episode that's going to take a ton of work, that's going to be probably more like a season finale. That's going to take an absolute butt ton of work, but more 80s lore and equipment in there. But he's going to be like, you know, he's kind of a goof. He's like not a serious guy, but he's just like, he's kind of like, you know, if you've watched Archer, he's kind of like Sterling Archer, where he just like, he can get out of any situation, but he's just like, he seems like a bumbling idiot, but he like gets out of any situation. Yes, the 80s did choose him, and so 80s is his superpower. So if you notice his outfit, right, he has the, it had to be a cardigan. They don't have on, they have suit jackets, but it comes with either the tie or the bow tie, and he's not square, so he's not wearing any of that stuff. So he's wearing, he has the pastel pink, and the only time he's going to do a costume change is to the pastel blue, which if we look up Don Johnson, let's see, find that. I also thought of a good Don Johnson reference to go in the in one of the episodes. That is going to be, and of course Vice is going to have no clue who he is. But, sorry, I'm just moving around screens here. So this is going to be his other outfit is just going to be the blue version of him. And so that's all his costume change he's really going to get is from pastel pink to pastel blue. That's pretty much his only costume change there. I might have a friend who's going to do something with me. I need a Tubbs, but it'll be a different name. But yeah. So what I really want to do is I want to do that Knight Rider. I want to do the Knight Rider Vice. So if you look at his car, get his car up here again. The delay throws me when the delays, like I can't tell what's going on with the delay. So like currently his car has the Vice here, and so what I want to do is I can change it to a monitor. And so I'd have to do, can I do a 5 monitor? 1x3. No, 5. So it'd be a 1x3 monitor there, and it would essentially be Vice looking like this. And it would stream left and right. So it would be, and it's reasonably easy. I say that with fingers crossed, but as you notice with this one, it's just squares. So this is written out all in squares, and so that makes it so I should be able to do a Lua where it goes across and it goes, activates square, 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 and it gets it so it looks like Vice is just painting on and off, kind of like how Kit was doing. Yes, pastel blue is when he has a hangover or something, maybe. But yeah, so this is cool. I love the flip-up headlights. I had to do it. Like I said, I put it in the drink. I liked the I like the look. Let me see if I have an old version of the car. Yeah, I can bring in the editor. It's this one. Here's the old version. You see it has the permanent lights. I like it. You can see it breaks up the hood a little bit, but you have to have flip-ups. You know, you have to have flip-ups. And it was based off the Testarossa, so it even has a flat 12 like the Testarossa. You know, I put in. The problem is that our blocks are so tall. Like this should be like shorter and longer, but I need the roof that tall, or else the guy just won't fit in it. But this actually works pretty well. It had to have a little bit of a stability system in there. Even with the 50-50 weight balance, it still wants to nose down and it wants to nose up because of the way the aerodynamics work. So I have to have a little bit of pitch control on there to keep it flat when I do jumps. Eventually, I'd like to jump it off one of the drawbridges, so I needed it to sit flat so I can go off a drawbridge and hopefully land it. So one thing I wish the devs would do is really get in there and get us a proper cinematic camera. There's been a lot of games that have really good cinematic camera, and I would love that if they could get us a reasonable cinematic camera. The other thing that I would love them to do is, so I'll probably at some point I'll do a feature request, and you guys can support it if you like. But like, so for me to do like a lot of the Vice shots, I have to go in and I have to, so I go in the camera mode, I can go ahead and get rid of it, then I have to pause it. So that's unpaused, that's paused. And then I have to go and I can do, I wish we had more emotes, that's a problem. And then the emotes are a pain, so I have to go yes. And then I have to get my cursor off the screen, I have to click record, and then I have to press P, and I can get him to do it. And so you'll see some of the, like I had a couple of my cursors in there because I bring it off the side, and I had a couple cursors sitting in there, and I'm like, crap, I have to zoom in, so I just zoom in enough so I can't see my cursor. But then to do the next one, I have to pause it, go in here, you know, do no, bring the cursor off screen, and then I can do, you know, and that gave me the wrong one because this emote wheel is screwy. Even though I didn't know, because I dragged the cursor down, it gave me the salute. So I have to, like, it's kind of a pain, but what I do is I start making a catalog of these. So like I have a catalog of all the different emotes in different places, and so for like that episode, he was at 3 different places, so I had to do him 3 times, but mercifully, if we get out of that mode here, mercifully, dispatch was just in dispatch, so dispatch I could use the same mode, so that saved me a ton of time, just having all of her emotes in the same area. So, as you can see, there's dispatch, but yeah, so that's how I was doing those. So that's kind of cool, but Vice takes a little while, and the first episode was more like a pilot because it was crappy me just doing pitch change, and then I finally got some better voices in there for the other ones. So a bunch of ideas for that. I will continue working on that. I don't know if once a week, we'll see. It depends. Like I was, you know, I have to write, the script came quick for the last one. You know, it's, I don't know, it was 6 hours of work for like a 13-minute video, probably for that. The build challenges are still the longest. The build challenge, I worked literally 16 hours in that build challenge video, and the video was 4 hours. You figure I have to watch it I have to record it. So that's if the video is 4 hours and I cut some of it. So let's say the video is 4.5 hours. That's 4.5 hours of recording. And then I have to go through the first version of it. So that is, I have to go through 4.5 hours. So now we're at 9 hours. And then I have to put in titles, any correction, any fixes. I have to put in any pop-ups on that stuff. So there is another, maybe that's an hour run on that. So we're talking 9.5. And then I have to watch the whole thing through at the end. And so that's another, length of the video. So another 4 hours of that plus stops. So say 4.5. And so, now you're up to say 16 for that. Plus, I put all the vehicles together to take a picture of them. That only takes me 5 minutes. That's super quick. People probably overestimate that. That's go in the add-on editor. I can even look at it. Where is it? Where are you at there? Delta. There's Delta. Oh, I load the Delta up. But like if you load up the Delta, save. I had it saved. There's challenge Delta. So it only takes like 5 minutes because I don't actually move all those planes into place. I just put them in all with an add-on, put them where I want them. Usually make them static. That's like if you saw Mr. G's landing wheels are actually in the middle position. And that's because that was in with the add-on editor, and I made it static so that I wouldn't have to worry about it banging into anything. And so just load up real quick, and then after this we'll end up there. I need to go for my walk. But like you can see here, this is the Delta, and then I just have to quickly put this together. This only takes like 5 minutes to get this in here, maybe 10. And then I just, I can record the ins and outs scenes here. But this part doesn't take very long comparatively to some of the other stuff. But, oh, you can't see add-ons. I just realized that. You're going to see blue screen if I'm in the add-on editor. That's annoying. OBS will not capture the add-on editor. So if you see the blue screen, that's what that is. But, yep. So I really enjoyed this last challenge. I'm thinking of the next one. The next one's going to be land. I kind of know what I want to do. What the purpose of it's going to be. It's going to be kind of, again, try to put in a mechanical element, try to, challenge people. It's a challenge, for a reason. It's not, you're not just facing your competitors, but you're facing the challenge itself, Should have some reasonably difficult mechanics so that, I used to learn a lot of my mechanics from doing the New Jersey challenges, which, the first land vehicle I ever built was for the New Jersey challenge. And so I had to learn how to build a land vehicle and make and I built a complicated transmission for it. I built a 13-speed transmission for it. But, I had to learn that on the fly. I'd never built a land vehicle before. And so part of the challenge is trying to get you to do some things you might not be familiar with. So, like, one of it is, like, if I say you have to use a modular engine, some people have literally, like, who have a lot of time in the game have never built a modular engine. Well, now they're like, oh, I want to compete in the challenge. I don't know modular engines. Well, I'll have to learn it. Well, now they're like, they'll send me a message like, oh, I only use modular engines now because I was afraid to touch them, and now I know how to use them. And so that's kind of, that's kind of how I, one of the reasons why, the challenge shouldn't have challenge, the game itself should be a challenge in the challenge. And so that's kind of why I do that. So I think we'll end up there. I need to go for my walk. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was fun getting a live stream, and I'm trying to do some more live streams, but I've been kind of pressed with doing some of these things, and I like to pay attention to chat, so it's tough to get like a hard build in when I'm doing that. But that was funny, like my stall plane I built while watching the last 4.5 hours of the build challenge Delta video. So I was like sitting there, and I didn't need to like fully pay attention. Like I knew all the visuals were fine. I just needed to check any spelling errors. I needed to make sure there weren't like any weird pauses. So I built this while I was doing the build challenge Delta final watch through the video, as I had a plane in the background, and then like if I'd hear a weird what do you call it, pause like that, or like me like mumbling my words, I could then stop what I was doing over in the game, pause it, fix it, and then move on. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll be doing some more live streams. Hopefully, I hope you guys found that, found all the transmission stuff interesting. Let me know what you think about it. I will be doing a tutorial on that that is a lot of planning for that tutorial. I don't want it to be 2 hours of me being like, oh, no, do this instead. I really need to get that kind of scripted and done so that I can make sure all the parts are ready. I need to get the chart ready. I need to make sure the chart can be shared so you guys can just use that transmission chart yourself. And kind of want to make it concise so everybody understands it. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.